Chapter 934, Clarity. Wang Chang walked toward the three of them. Wang Wei could immediately tell he was different. The death aura surrounding him was gone, replaced by an unmatched vitality. From afar, he could hear the sound of his blood rushing to his body, followed by his powerful heartbeat. He could already imagine the old man's strength but noticed something else. He was not as happy as usual. Normally, he would have been laughing his heart out, talking as loud as his heart wished. However, his grandfather seemed quiet until he reached the table. "My favorite grandson, how are you?" said Wang Chang before patting Wang Wei on the head. "I'm your only grandson," replied Wang Wei, rolling his eyes. "But Grandpa, why do I feel like you're not in the best mood?" "Hey," said Wang Chang with a sigh. "I left my seclusion, prepared to go show off to my old friends. Then I realized most of them are already dead." The room was quiet. Unlike Wang Wei's Heavenwell battle, where he had the strength to spare his competitors, his grandfather's battle was cruel, and only a few people survived. Although most of these people were his rivals, they were also people he knew the longest. Some were only competitors because of the circumstances. They respected each other and could be described as friends. Alas, for the sake of immortality and eternity, they had to kill each other. "Don't talk about these sad things," said Wang Chang. "What were you guys talking about before I arrived?" Wang Tian immediately took this opportunity to change the subject, talking about his swordsmanship world. "Could we recruit talent from that world?" asked Wang Chang. "Although our sex once had the most powerful swordswoman in the world, we have not done a good job cultivating more swordsmen. Is the Dao opening sect a swordsman sect?" "Yes and no. They have the knowledge and resources to cultivate potent swordsmen. However, only once in a while would a decent swordsman appear in their sect." "No," replied Wang Tian, explaining what Wang Wei said. "In that case, could we use the technique they developed?" asked Wang Chang. "There should be no problem," responded Wang Wei, nodding his head. "Although the highest level is quasi-emperor, the majority of them are ingenious, containing unique sword Dao ideas and applications." "I just had an idea," said Wang Tian. "Could the members of the Sword Alliance inherit the destiny of this world's sword god?" That's not a bad idea," replied Wang Wei. "The sword gods in his world are basically emperors limited by their world and cannot prove the Dao. Their sword Dao is the best in their generation, reaching the limit of the world. If someone in the myriad emperor world could inherit these sword gods' destiny, it would be like inheriting a great emperor's destiny. It's also a way to continue the legacy of these swordsmen limited by the world they were born in. I have already gathered the imprints and destinies of all the sword gods into the Sword Dao Temple. You can send members of the Sword Alliance to the temple to see if they can inherit any of these destinies," explained Wang Wei. "Will there be any trouble with heavenly Dao?" "No," Wang Wei shook his head. "Your idea is the same as using another world's destiny to nourish the myriad emperor world. Having the destiny of an emperor did not mean these people were guaranteed to prove the Dao. On the contrary, if too many people of the Sword Alliance had sword god destiny, they would become fate sheep to heavenly Dao. Once any of them die without proving the Dao, heavenly Dao will take their unique sword Dao destiny, break it into multiple parts, and scatter it into the myriad emperor world, allowing many future generations to compete for that sword god destiny. The final winner will recondense the sword god destiny before competing with other people for the heaven will to prove the Dao. After so many battles, the people who can prove the Dao with the sword god destiny would have been tempered to the extreme." "I understand," nodded Wang Tian. "The sword god destiny is indeed valuable, but only if its owner can keep it and prove the Dao. Otherwise, if they died, the only fate of such destiny is to be gutted and nourished by the world." "Grandpa, now that you have such potential, what are you going to do?" asked Wang Wei. "I have been debating with myself," replied Wang Chang, who took Wang Wei's snacks and directly ate it. Yu Yen was distressed but could not say anything about her father-in-law, so she could only give her son more while blaming her husband. "After thinking about it, I have two choices. Firstly, continue to develop my bloodline until I reach 75 to 80 infant fiend god force, and fight 9 sons with my fleshly body. The second option is to continue our previous path, becoming an insurgent Dao ancestor. With my bloodline, it should be easier to become an insurgent and can reduce the resources needed for my bloodline. Developing his bloodline in the lower dimension is difficult, so Wang Chang was leaning more toward the second option. "Do you still want to reincarnate?" asked Wang Wei, making the room quiet down. "Father, you don't have to. You can still prove the Dao in the upper dimension with your bloodline." Wang Chang shook his head. "I want to have my own glory and brilliance, sitting on the throne and ruling the court. I still want to bring glory to our Dao opening sect, and I cannot do any of these things in this life. Wang Wei still sighed despite already knowing the answer. I support your choice. But you should be prepared to suffer from the balance mechanism after you reincarnate. He knew how powerful the sect would become in the future and how much it would be restricted by the stupid mechanism. So, future emperors of the sect will have to be extra careful. I'm not worried about this, said Wang Chang nonchalantly. Oh, why not? Asked Wang Wei, not hiding his curiosity. By the time I reincarnate, you should be strong enough not to give any face to true heavenly Tao. By then, how dare it make things difficult for me? Wang Wei looked at the old man, his open mouth revealing his current emotions. Then he suddenly laughed as boisterously as his grandpa used to. Ah. Yes, I've been so annoyed about this balance mechanism that I failed to see the core of the issue. As long as I can reach their heights, how dare true heavenly Tao restrict my sect? Half-step transcendence, it's only a matter of time before I reach such a realm, thought Wang Wei with a brilliant smile. Boom. The sky above the myriad emperor world changed, countless golden lights, golden lotus and Tao voices echoed between heaven and earth. Many people were shocked by this natural vision, wondering what had happened. However, after a few deductions and divination they were speechless. The answer was that the heavenly emperor was so happy that heaven and earth changed to celebrate this mood. The most frustrating aspect of this vision to these people is that it was not something the heavenly emperor did himself. The man was so powerful and noble heaven and earth would sometimes respond to his mood. In the end, these people could only sigh and return to their daily lives. Meanwhile, Wang Wei was in a good mood and ignored what was happening outside. Grandpa, thank you for enlightening me. Although I don't know what's going on with you, I'm glad I can help. Wang Chang only said what was in his mind. He knew his son and grandson's potential, so he had unconditional faith in them, especially his grandson. As for your issue, there is no need to make a choice and use both of them, continued Wang Wei, his smile not abating in the slightest. Becoming a Tao ancestor and coming into contact with the grand Tao source will immensely benefit you after your reincarnation. As for your bloodline, there are enough resources in the lower dimension to raise it to the eternal level. In the worst-case scenario, I will seal you in a world place full of innate qi, speed up the time, and allow your bloodline to naturally develop through age. The Wang clan's human fiend god bloodline functions like every fiend god bloodline, requiring an extremely long time to grow and develop. So, any members who inherited the 10th revolution do not need to cultivate and rely on the natural growth of their bloodline to reach 100 infant fiend god force. The only downside is they might take countless yuan epochs just like cultivating in the Emperor realm. No, the time needed would be even longer than normal. Fiend gods are born in primordial chaos and can absorb primordial qi at birth to grow their bloodline. But the Wang clan only have access to spiritual and maybe innate qi, so their growth time should be even longer. Chapter 935, Rise of Mortals. That's fine, nodded Wang Chang. As long as he can defeat 9 sons, the last flaw on his Tao heart will be fixed. Then he can be reincarnated, hopefully with the same unparalleled talent as his son and grandson. Well, forget the anomaly that is his grandson, he will be satisfied with some of the talent of his son. Afterward, he can sit on the throne and become a heavenly emperor, looking down on myriad worlds and races, bringing glory, luck and destiny to the Tao opening sect. By then, if everything goes correctly, he might even see his wife again. Although the chances were slim, they were better than nothing. By the way, do you have a way to find 9 sons? Asked Wang Chang. Yes, nodded Wang Wei. His sons made a deal with me to protect him. In return, he sold his father's information to me. Through their bloodline, I can help you find him in the upper dimension. I guess I should not be surprised Emperor 9 sons would side with these parasites, sneered Wang Tian. Wang Wei disagreed with his father's words. He did not know 9 sons' exact circumstances, whether he was forced, was only externally on their side while secretly plotting against them, or was truly a villain who feared for his life. He would not villainize the man because of what happened in his grandfather's generation. Simultaneously, he also won't have any sympathy. His grandfather needs to defeat him, maybe even kill him, to heal his Tao heart, so 9 sons have to either suffer or die. Let's not talk about this, said Wang Chang, and everybody agreed to change the subject. Wire, now that you left your seclusion, does that mean it's time for me to move to my family? Asked Yu Yen with worry in her eyes. Now is indeed the perfect time, uttered Wang Wei. He had opened the wisdom of all mortals in this plane, so it was indeed time to prepare for his mother's proving Tao method. However, there is no need to hurry. Let's wait until after Li Jun and Yan Liling become emperor. Although it was the perfect time, he did not want to separate his family so soon. Won't that affect the plan? Don't worry about it, reassured Wang Wei. We might even use them to prove the Tao in the deception method. That's fine then, nodded Yu Yan. Wang Wei spent the rest of the day with his family. The next day he had two things on his schedule. The first one was having a talk with Ancestor Wuqing. However, the latter would take a few dozen years before exiting his retreat, so Wang Wei focused on the second task. He did not leave the sect but sent an invisible projection to travel through the central continent. His first destination was the Emperor Enlightening Academy's domain. He wanted to check the development of their mortal civilization. 700 years passed since the second court meeting, leaving 300 years until the third. Such a long time was more than enough to build a decent spiritual rune civilization, especially since they were copying the Tao opening sect's model. As soon as Wang Wei arrived at this place called Black Stripe City, he felt a strange incongruity. He saw many modern concepts in the form of constructs like cars, airplanes, trains, and buses. He even saw people with flying carriages, changing the setting from modern day to futuristic. However, according to his modern Earth cognition, everyone dressed in ancient clothes had long hair and spoke like ancient people. It's like ancient people suddenly developed futuristic technology, but these technologies also looked ancient, thought Wang Wei, secretly shaking his head. Wang Wei continued walking and noticed everyone had one thing in common: a bracelet on their wrists. He watched a young man across the street tap his hand on the bracelet, and a holographic screen appeared before him. He seemed to have read something, and a smile manifested on his somewhat handsome face. Then he began to press on the screen before it disappeared. Wang Wei looked at another person who was talking to the screen before them. Oddly, no sounds came from their mouths. Even the person standing next to them could hear what they were saying. Did they make improvements to the communication talismans? Not bad, commented Wang Wei before walking away. He walked around the city and noticed many libraries. Excellent, he thought. In the past, knowledge only belonged to noble mortals as a way to control the lower class. Now, knowledge was accessible to everyone. He continued walking and he heard many people talking excitedly on his way. Did you hear? What is it? A cultivator will give a lecture in the academy on spiritual runes. Why are you so excited? Wasn't there one last month? Yes, said a third person in this group of three. I heard the Emperor Enlightening Academy is trying to catch up to the Tao opening sect's region. So, many cultivators have given lectures in the past 100 years, trying to accelerate the growth of our civilization. You guys don't understand, said the first person who spoke. According to my sources, the person who will give the lecture is a quasi-emperor and an alchemist. After hearing the word, quasi-emperor, the other two showed a look of envy, longing, and fear. In this current age of information, everybody knows the existence of cultivators and how powerful they are. As such, they understand the capability of such a powerhouse. An alchemist? Such a cultivator should deeply understand divine runes, so their explanation of spiritual runes should be very profound. The three of them were extraordinary citizens who could tap into the potential of their spiritual power. As such, they enrolled in school at a young age to learn about spiritual runes in the hope of developing their civilization. That's why I'm so excited. No matter what, we must attend this lecture, even if we have to buy a seat in the black market. True, nodded one of them before a look of worry took over his facial expression. I hope another northern barbarian will not affect the lecture like last month. The faces of the other changes, we're in public, so don't say these words. The group looked around to see if anyone heard them, and then they rushed to their destination. Wang Wei calmly watched this with a smile. Then he continued his tour. He first went to see a recorded story. He chose a romance story. He could see through such a low-level illusion with his power, but he shut down his mind and enjoyed the movie. However, Wang Wei regretted his action. The movie was a tragedy where the main character lost the love of his life, deciding to live the rest of his life alone in the mountains. The movie reminded him of Wu Hong. After all, he also saw a movie the last time they met. As such, he was depressed after exiting the cinema. Terrible movie, I will give it a bad review. The pettiness in him activated to the max. So, he went to the best publisher in this city and secretly influenced the head editor to write a terrible review of the movie in the next newspaper release. That's better, muttered Wang Wei, his mood drastically improved. He did not care about the commotion it would create if the mighty heavenly emperor were seen as so petty or the consequences that would befall the creators of that movie had the world known the heavenly emperor did not like their story. After venting his negative emotion, Wang Wei continued his tour. He visited a temple nearby. At the center of the temple were 5 statues, and he recognized the main one, Su Shi. Countless people entered the temple and offered their worship, asking for blessings. The majority of them asked for their offspring to be born as extraordinary citizens. They were smart enough to leave my share, thought Wang Wei. The temple did not have his statue, but there were plenty of mentions of him and the court. As such, plenty of mortals prayed to him instead of Su Shi and the other gods from the academy. Moreover, he could tell he was the most popular god in the world. Most mortals are not really religious, but they respect the gods because of their strength and presence. So, when they pray or think of any god, the first that comes to mind is the most powerful one, the Heavenly Emperor. Let's check other regions, thought Wang Wei before heading to the transmission gate for mortals. He created an identity before buying a ticket to travel to another domain. The price is too expensive. In his sex domain, mortals do not have to pay so much to use the subspace. However, it's understandable. After all, the Tao opening sect has been developing their mortal civilization for more than 300,000 years, and they have reached the limit. These factions are doing nothing but catch up and have only been developed for 700 years. It's not hard to understand why they are still way behind. Chapter 936, Rise of Mortals 2. Wang Wei stood before a gate full of runes. Although his statue was everywhere in this city, no one recognized him. He observed the large gate, feeling the subtle fluctuation emanating from it. He remembered how the world was when he first came and how much influence he had on this world. Back then, if you had told anyone that mortals could master the power of space-time on their own, 99% of cultivators would have laughed in your face, while the remaining 1% would look at you oddly and not say anything out of politeness. He waited a few minutes until it was his turn. According to instructions, he stood in a circle before the door. Then a flash of light appears around him and he disappears. A controlled wormhole? Not bad, he thought before finding himself inside an all-white space that was shining as bright as the stars. His mind seemed to feel like it was looking at infinity itself. If I were a mortal, then this subspace would indeed be a version of infinity, thought Wang Wei. Before long, he found himself in another room with a magic circle on the ground. There was no gate around him, but Wang Wei could tell the entire compound was the teleportation gate. A woman stood before him with a gentle smile. She immediately welcomed him and explained how to leave the compound. Wang Wei thanked her before leaving. Let's see what's different between this Green Lotus City and Black Stripe City, thought Wang Wei. Green Lotus City is in the Tai Profound Gates domain, so he wanted to know whether there was any difference. He walked around the city and to Wang Wei's disappointment, there wasn't much difference except for the god temples. As a religion, Taoism had gods even before the heavenly court, and the people living in their domain were used to worship different gods. However, the Tai Profound Gate would always disperse the incense gathered, and the act of praying was more of a way to condense their religion's chi luck by better controlling the mortals. How stubborn, thought Wang Wei, thinking are these Taoist monks followed the absolute beginning emperor's edict like it was absolute. After shaking his head, Wang Wei visited a few more places in the central continent before heading to the southern continent. His first destination was Heartfire City in his old sect's domain, the Origin Pildao sect. As soon as he arrived, he discovered something different. Most mortals had tattoos on them. Some hid them with some sort of potion. Others naturally could hide them in their bodies while the rest did not care and let them show. Totem warriors? Has it spread to mortals? Wang Wei was intrigued, so investigated. He went to a hospital and saw a bunch of children that had been born. Then a caretaker or nurse pushed them into a special room with countless runes engraved on the ceiling. She activated something and the runes descended on the children's body, creating a tattoo. Some of the children began to emit light in their forehead where their Niwen palace was. The nurse had a holographic screen before her and would identify these children as extraordinary. As for the other children, the light emanates from their bodies. I see, thought Wang Wei, understanding the situation. The mortal civilization in the south did not follow the Tao opening sect's model but created their own unique civilization. The citizens did not use things like meditation, potions, pills, or rune array to create extraordinary citizens that awakened their spiritual power. Instead, they directly engraved special runes on the people's bodies at birth, activating their potential and spiritual power. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens do not need to practice martial arts to wash and nourish their bodies with spiritual qi, thus strengthening them and prolonging life. The totem given to them at birth will automatically absorb spiritual qi from the environment and replace the role of martial arts. Different paths to the same destination, thought Wang Wei with a smile. He was glad these people did not directly copy his sect. That would be boring. It's good for the mortal spiritual rune civilization to have variety. He then proceeded to analyze the difference between these two mortal civilizations. The totem allows this citizen to awaken their spiritual power at birth, saving them a great deal of time. However, my people who have to meditate for a long period of time before succeeding, their spiritual powers are scattered and harder to control. It's the same for body totem. They don't need to practice martial arts, but their strength is not as good as the sect's mortals. However, they can also add more totems to their bodies to make up for this fault. In general, each had its advantages and disadvantages. If Wang Wei had to choose, he would lean toward the totem warriors. However, they have not been developing long enough to be even close to his sect's mortal civilization. By the time they catch up, his mortals would have adopted some of the advantages of this totem civilization. Wang Wei walked away and continued to observe this city. Due to the influence of the southern continent's professions, the mortal civilizations developed faster than the others. Things like pharmacology and rune artifacts excelled in the south. Arrays are not well developed in any mortal civilization because mortal spiritual power is too weak to borrow the strength of heaven and earth, so they must rely on artifacts, similar to technology, to do everything. Wang Wei took a soaring phoenix construct, heading to the nearest city. As he sat in the plane that was flying in the air, a sense of achievement overcame him. He looked through the window and saw endless stretches of land, forests, and mountains. This world is too big. After more than 700, the mortal population had drastically increased, but they still occupied a small part of the population. However, if they continue to reproduce at such a rate, after a few million generations, an issue of overpopulation might occur. Should I plan for this? He thought about it for a moment and decided to ignore it. Once the court spreads to the lower realm and other world communities, mortal migration will help with this problem. Additionally, Wang Wei knew that this world will not always be peaceful. After he leaves, not all heavenly emperors will be able to reign in these ambitious cultivators, allowing mortals to grow and develop. Once a weak emperor takes control, the cultivators will have no restraint, fighting everywhere and destroying countless mortal cities and civilizations. They must be restrained, thought Wang Wei before continuing his tour. He focused on observing the gods of the southern continent. Su Shi is worshipped as the god of the south, along with some gods from the academy. However, to adapt to the local situation, Su Shi also allowed gods that originated from factions in the south to be worshipped as well. After visiting the south, Wang Wei looked in the direction of the origin Pil Dao sect. Lu Cheng's destiny and fate were still shrouded in a cloud that blocked all his investigation. However, his fate shadow guard has infiltrated the sect and learned the latter is refining a pill, and he seemed obsessed with it. Moreover, Lu Cheng went to great lengths to hide it from others, especially him. Flame Emperor, what are you planning? Thought Wang Wei. He analyzed the situation countless times and had many theories. Alas, there was not enough information to come to a conclusion. It doesn't matter. I have a feeling your path will lead to me in the end, thought Wang Wei before leaving. He headed to the eastern continent, trying to see if their civilization was anything unique. As soon as he landed, he sensed the difference. The mortal civilization in the east seemed to have inherited the martial spirit even present in the cultivation world of the east. They were also greatly influenced by the fact that most swordsmen's lineage was in the east. The martial art that Wang Wei developed to help people keep fit turned into a world of mortal martial arts, with mortals who became as strong as divine altar realm cultivators. Moreover, this was not the only unique aspect of the eastern mortal civilization. A grand event was happening in Warrior City, so Wang Wei bought a ticket to the Colosseum. In his private room, Wang Wei calmly watched the events. When it began, his mouth twitched. Human versus robots? He thought. At the center of the stadium was a man in martial clothes with a long sword. Opposite him stood a humanoid puppet more than 5 meters tall. Wang Wei could tell a mortal was inside the puppet, controlling it like an exoskeleton suit. The battle was thrilling, at least it was to the crowd. In the end, the swordsman won as he successfully chopped the puppet made of wood and ores harder than steel. Wang Wei noticed he was an extraordinary citizen who could place temporary runes on his body to boost his physical attributes. Rune martial art? Human ingenuity is truly a wonderful thing, thought Wang Wei before staying to watch the next battle. It was the same swordsman against a divine sea cultivator. The final result was the cultivator's victory, but he barely won. Wang Wei could tell he was trying his best. The cultivator left the Colosseum feeling humiliated. However, he did not dare act out. The mortal civilizations had no problem dealing with low-level cultivators like himself. Furthermore, the heavenly court did not allow any cultivators to mess with mortals. Wang Wei shook his head. The man accepted the Colosseum invitation, probably thinking it was easy money. But who knew he was only inviting humiliation to himself? In the end, it's because cultivators have not truly integrated with mortals, concluded Wang Wei, but that was to be expected. After all, it has only been 700 years. Extraordinary citizens can now live between 250 to 300 years, meaning only 2 generations passed for them, let alone cultivators. So, there is still a lot more work to do before a perfect integration could appear. In the end, it might not even be perfect. More importantly, the court needs to have strict written rules. Wang Wei has shown how he felt towards mortals, so these factions followed his will. It did help they could also benefit. However, the heavenly court has yet to establish strict and written rules for everybody to follow. A lot of work has to be done in the next meeting, thought Wang Wei while tasting the unique food of the East. He enjoyed tasting the food of each civilization. So far, his favorite has been the spiciness of the South. After the battle, nothing interested him, so Wang Wei headed to the Western continent to check how the monks were doing. Chapter 937, Rise of Mortals, 3. Wang Wei arrived in the Western continent through the mortal subspace traveling technology. He was happy with the changes he saw so far, especially with the transportation technology. Before he forced the world to change, most mortals would be born and die in the same domain they were born. No, forget the domain, all of them would spend millions of generations stuck in the 10,000-kilometer radius of where they were born. Only a few things like natural man-made disasters, dynasty changes, and famine would make them change location. However, 99% of them would die in the process, ending their lineage. Now, any mortal with a decent income can travel the entire world, going from one domain to another and from one continent to another. After everything is settled, use of the subspace should become cheaper, and everyone can travel anywhere with relative ease. After walking out of the portal, Wang Wei secretly used his power in the subspace. Order. No cultivators can enter the subspace. Disorder. Unless they have permission from the court and are going to do things like repair or fix certain problems. The subspace that connected the entire world of mortals was subtly changed, and only a few people noticed the difference. Then Wang Wei continued his visit. He visited the Western continent, trying to see their civilization. His first observation was that the devil cultivators were nowhere to be seen. I guess this should be expected, thought Wang Wei with a smirk. His eyes scanned the entire continent and saw most devil lineage had closed their gate, not allowing their disciples to participate in the outside world. A few were even discussed modifying their techniques to make it less reliant on negative karma. Meanwhile, during this absence, the Western Bliss sect had already controlled the Western White Tiger continent. I'm surprised the D clan did not resist, even secretly, thought Wang Wei. Feng Heng's approach to the Western continent was similar to a cultural invasion, slowly making Buddhism the dominant religion and influencing the West. He did not try to directly influence the cultivation part of the West but focused on the mortals, who were the main source of cultivators. Now, more than 70% of mortals would choose to enter the Western Bliss sect once they have the talent for cultivation. Without the threat of the devil, the D clan's prestige and power were tremendously reduced. It also did not help that they were a clan faction. 99% of the people in power were members of the D clan, sharing a bloodline. The remaining 1% were talented individuals they recruited outside, but the caveat is that they had to marry one of D clan's daughters, and the heir would have the name D. Many people do not accept becoming the D clan's son-in-law, making it difficult to recruit foreign cultivators. In the past, some people had no choice, either marrying into the D clan or becoming a devil cultivator. But now they could also choose the Western Bliss sect. Feng Heng was smart and created the Outer Hall, a faction in the Western Bliss sect that cultivated Buddhist techniques but did not believe in Buddha or the religion. These people only had to follow certain rules and precepts, and other things did not matter. Many people praise him for his benevolence, but Wang Wei could tell the trap in this method. If these people want to cultivate the Buddhist technique to a higher level, they must have a deeper understanding of the Dharma, meaning they must read and understand Buddhist scriptures and ideologies. In the end, most of them will convert to the religion to reach higher realms. Such a method is good in the early stages, but it will leave a flaw for Buddhism later on, thought Wang Wei. Since he was also part of Buddhism, he decided to warn Feng Heng. Does he already know? I see, he's using this method to strengthen the weak foundation of Buddhism. However, he should leave methods to deal with the issue before ascending. For a moment, Wang Wei thought the monk had allowed the idea of reviving Buddhism to affect his mind and made such an error. That's fine, thought Wang Wei before continuing his tour. The West also had a unique mortal civilization and it involved Buddhism. While invisible, Wang Wei watched a battle between two individuals in a forest outside Holy Light City, a mortal monk and a Tier 3 demon beast. Donor, I know you were enlightened and know right from wrong. It's not too late to redeem yourself, serve your sentence and become free once again. Ridiculous. Demons should be free and wild. So what if I ate a few humans? This is my nature, replied the black tiger with white stripes on its back. Wisdom and knowledge are the keys to changing one's innate nature. So, it does not matter whether demons despise societal rules and restraint. All of you monks have golden tongues, I won't listen to any of your words. In that case, donor, please have a taste of my Arha subduing demon fist, said the monk before taking on a martial pose. The battle was fierce, but a few hours later, the monk defeated the tiger demon, who was on par with the divine altar realm cultivator, and captured it. Then he used a communication talisman to contact the government in Holy Light City to get the tiger. Buddhist martial art? Interesting, thought Wang Wei before leaving. He entered a temple and watched a young monk create a magical artifact. The monk held a beard before him and constantly chanted Buddhist mantras. Finally, a phantom of a monk floated above him and waved his hand to bless the bead, turning it into a magical artifact. Success, said the monk, who stood up in excitement. However, he was a mortal without cultivation or martial arts, so he was dizzy and almost fainted. Luckily, he held on to something before falling. Another path besides extraordinary citizens? Thought Wang Wei as he realized what Feng Heng had done. He revived many of the fallen monks from the incense era in the form of spirit, turning them into gods of Buddhism and receiving incense from mortals. In return, mortals who do not have the talent to become extraordinary citizens can become monks and learn scriptures. The truly talented or devoted ones can resonate with one of the spirits, becoming their patron gods. These patron gods will protect their chosen subjects and grant them abilities similar to extraordinary citizens, even their status in society on par. This is not a bad idea, thought Wang Wei. These spirits use their powers to feed the luck and prosperity of mortal civilization, which will feed back to them, allowing them to use an alternative form of cultivation. Some of them were probably immortals from the incense era. With this method, it's only a matter of time before they can return to their previous strength, thus boosting Buddhism's foundation as a lineage. These spirits have been dead for too long, rendering their imprints useless to revive them. Furthermore, too many of them died, so it was impossible for Feng Heng to revive them. Even someone with Wang Wei's strength would take too much effort, as he might have to tamper with the river of time if he wanted to revive these people. Such an act might lead to severe consequences, so he could not help Feng Heng even if he went to. So, this method of turning them into spirits or religious gods is an alternative to reviving them. Although the majority would lose their memories, there is still a chance that some will regain them. Wang Wei secretly nodded before continuing his tour. The mortal civilization in this continent had a peaceful atmosphere. Because of the influence of Buddhism, everyone had a deep wisdom and compassion aura surrounding them. The extraordinary citizens also had a unique path, since Buddhism had a deep knowledge of the mind, soul, and spiritual power. As such, their methods of awakening spiritual power for their people were excellent and can be described as top of the line. The demon school that Wang Wei created has also flourished in the West. Many monks have made it their mission to enlighten animals to turn into demons, teaching them about compassion, morality, and the idea of controlling their nature. Once the demons become enlightened and pass a test, they will receive the transformation pill, allowing them to change into human shape before the supernatural realm. Afterward, the demon race can integrate into the cultivation or mortal world based on their own choice or preference. Wang Wei was not surprised by this method, since the Tao opening sect had a similar approach. The fox race was in charge of the demon race's enlightenment in their territory. The only difference is that the demon race would integrate into the cultivation world, not the mortal one. Feng Heng was using the demon race's luck to nourish his mortal civilization. In turn, the demon race's luck will also benefit by adapting to the myriad emperor world's rules and the fact that the human race is the protagonist of heaven and earth. The monk's method entangled the two races' luck while still keeping the human race on top. Meanwhile, Wang Wei's method is to directly plunder the demon race's luck. His method is not bad and can be learned from, thought Wang Wei before leaving and heading to the north. The West's food was delicious, but the majority of it was vegetarian, and he wanted meat and something with more grease. Chapter 938, Rise of Mortals, Finale. Unedited chapter. Wang Wei finally arrived in the north and immediately noticed the difference. The spiritual qi in nature was not as dwindling as it used to. Although it has not reached the same level as the weakest of the four continents, the west, it was not higher than the islands scattered between the continents that loose cultivators mostly habit. The northern continent was now a veritable place of cultivation for a heaven-will world. With Ao Shun as its protector, the demon race no longer has to rely on the Dao opening sect to scare away the other factions and prevent them from messing up the situation of the north. The demon race has entered an era of prosperity. The only problem is whether Ao Shun can leave enough foundation for them to retain such prosperity, thought Wang Wei before beginning his tour of the north. His first observation was that every human was walking in the street with a demon. The flying horse carriage, the dragon crawling construct, and even the soaring phoenix constructs were all designed to include both humans and demons. Interesting, thought Wang Wei as he guessed the situation of the north. He went to a school for humans. Today was a special day for these 10-year-old children. All of them looked excited and kept talking, to the point the teacher just gave up accomplishing anything in class. The word, awakening ceremony, was everywhere, and Wang Wei secretly watched everything without intervening. When the time arrived, all the children headed to a large stadium in the school. At the center was a large formation engraved on the floor. An adult brought the first child in the middle of the array. The child looked nervous and excited. He stood in the middle and waited. A few minutes later, bright light enveloped the formation, and a creature appeared beside him. It was a wind bunny, a demonic beast that had just awakened its bloodline and acquired basic intelligence. The bunny looked around before pausing at the child. It was from the demon school and knew not to easily attack humans. The formation continued to release brilliant lights. Finally, a marking appeared on the wind bunny's forehead and on the child's right hand. Immediately afterward, the confusing look on the bunny's eyes disappeared, replaced by more intelligent eyes. Meanwhile, the child was excited and jumped before being shocked. That's because he easily jumped more than 10 meters in the air and landed without any problem. Lei Fan, physical attributes, yelled the teacher in charge of the ceremony. Then the next child appeared. The creature that appeared before him was a crow with blue eyes. As soon as the mark appeared on the child's hand, a pressure released from his body that gave the illusion the surrounding space was twisted. Xia Fu, mental attribute, yelled the teacher, and many people looked at the child with envy and desire. They knew this person would be an extraordinary citizen, with high status. The teacher called the next children, and she was also a physical attribute. Wang Wei's eyes brightened. A symbiotic relationship between humans and demons. Humans can acquire physical or spiritual power from demons, while demons will raise their intelligence. What a great civilization. Wang Wei could see the advantages and disadvantages of such a civilization. The humans of the north will be more powerful than normal humans from other continents, especially in the martial arts department. They will have longer lifespans, with normal citizens living up to 200 years and extraordinary citizens living up to 350 years. However, there is also a fatal disadvantage. If something happens to the demon, the humans will suffer tremendous backlash and have a 95% chance of dying. The situation is also reversed for demons, unless the human dies of old age. Ao Shun's method is quite ingenious. Demonic beasts or demons with pure bloodlines do not belong to mortals. The mortal version of demons are regular animals who have not awakened their wisdom and bloodline. As such, demonic beasts have a longer lifespan than humans because of their bloodline and because they are cultivators. As such, the majority of these demons who have placed a bond with their human counterpart will outlive their partners. With the contract, their intelligence increased, making cultivation in the early stages easier. Furthermore, they can use the human race's qi luck to nourish the demon race. This is not just the benefit they will receive. The demon race does not have the talent or ingenuity for professions like pill refining and talisman making. However, with their human partners, this problem will be solved. Wang Wei looked in the distance and saw the demon race's professions began to prosper. Beforehand, the demon race was only involved in the selling of materials. But now they started selling low-level pills, weapons, talismans, and arrays. The body-tempering realm requires pills that increase blood qi, and the best pills for this realm use the demon race's body and blood as the main material. The demon race had the advantage, so they have taken over the majority of the market for body-tempering pills. The divine body realm also requires tempering the body. If they play their cards well, they might take a big share of the market. However, the battle for such a market will not be as simple as the low-level one. There are more body-tempering realm cultivators in this world than divine body realm. However, the pill value of each realm is a world apart. As such, most factions will not allow the demon race to take part in their benefit without a significant fight. Unless the demon race creates a truly unique pill for the divine body realm, they have little to no chance to enter this market. Well, it's not like they won't have a chance, thought Wang Wei. Once the environment changes, everything will be reshuffled, and this will be Ao Shin's opportunity. Wang Wei's tour of the north was coming to an end, so he checked out the food. Given their relationship with demonic beasts, he thought the mortals of this place would have an aversion to eating animal meat. However, he was wrong. It seems whether it was humans or the demon race, they treated animals with no intelligence or bloodline as a completely different species. Their main culinary expertise involved all kinds of meat dishes, and Wang Wei enjoyed himself. In the end, he still had 2 designations left to check out, and he chose the sea to see how the sea race adapted to the changes of the world. Soon Wang Wei was not happy. He learned the process of entering the sea race's territory was extremely difficult and required a long process. So, if he wanted to enter the sea, he had to do so through his sect, the Loose Cultivator Alliance, or the Sword-Casting Villa's territory. These people are so stubborn. It seems I need to show them some color in the next meeting, thought Wang Wei, who used his power to directly teleport to the sea race's territory. Wang Wei immediately saw what kind of mortal civilization the sea race people created as he watched the people around him. He saw a human that was easily breathing underwater without any issues. He saw another human with fins and gills. There were other humans with sea race characteristics, allowing them to live and thrive underwater. So, they injected sea race bloodline into ordinary humans, trying to assimilate them into their clan? Thought Wang Wei before shaking his head. What a stupid method. Humans are the protagonists of the world, meaning luck and destiny are on their side. The sea was a haven for the sea race because normal humans could not live there, but now they made that possible. With human reproductive abilities, it's only a matter of time before they become the dominant population. Then, after these underwater humans cultivate a few great emperors and even an eternal emperor, then the sea race's dominance of the sea will be over. The sea race's situation is similar to the D clan in the West. They might want to include these new humans into their faction, but their clan only trusts members of the same race or bloodline, making it impossible for them to be inclusive. As such, it's only a matter of time before contradictions between these 2 races occur. Let's help these new humans, thought Wang Wei as he flicked his hand. He connected the destiny of the new humans to the chi luck of the human race, officially accepting their identity as humans instead of the sea race. From now on, the sea race cannot secretly manipulate their destiny and make them a part of their race. These people are humans and no one can change that. Now, I only need to make sure these humans are not discriminated against in the future, and they can contribute to the human race's luck and prosperity. Wang Wei was happy with his work and checked out the other sea territories. The area controlled by the Tao Opening Sect, the Loose Cultivator Alliance, and the Sword-Casting Villa are not much different than he expected. They used arrays to create areas under the sea where normal humans could live and thrive. Spiritual runes were used as the core of civilization. The only difference is water and Yin spiritual runes are often used. Furthermore, with the many Yin resources of the sea, there are many ways to awaken spiritual powers for mortals, making their number of extraordinary citizens extremely large. Wang Wei's last destination was the Heavenly Tree Village. This place had a special place in his heart. He arrived invisibly because he knew the village had passed on his pictures, treating them as one of the ancestors of the village. If he showed up, the entire village would stop whatever they were doing and celebrate his arrival. The village had both changed and remained the same. It was still divided into inner and outer areas. The outer area had changed with a spiritual rune civilization thriving. Meanwhile, the inner area resembled a village from the old time, a village that was backward. Mortals and cultivators cultivated the land the old-fashioned way instead of using spiritual runes, puppets, and constructs to help. Wang Wei saw a weapon refiner that was quite accomplished in the outside world, teaching a bunch of mortal teenagers about blacksmithing. He looked like an old man in the village who had spent his entire life in the forgery and not a powerful cultivator who could refine quasi-emperor artifacts that are worth more than everything in this village. This person was not the only one. Wang Wei saw cultivators of different realms everywhere in the village. Some were in the farms planting, others carried water, raised cattle, built houses, or even hunting. Wang Wei watched everything before raising his hand to materialize a scripture frowny face mortal dust heart refining art. Interesting, thought Wang Wei as he flipped through the village's main cultivation technique. Although it only reached the level of a quasi-emperor, the technique was unique. Using the Tao heart to control and wield the law instead of the soul. The idea is brilliant. Wang Wei has always believed that the Tao heart, like willpower and obsessions, is one of the powers in this universe that could create miracles. Unfortunately, he lacked the knowledge and deep understanding of Tao heart to fully utilize its capabilities. However, there are still some flaws, thought Wang Wei. He took a moment to correct the flaws he saw before returning to the technique. A brilliant light appeared in the village's ancestral hall, alarming every cultivator. They rushed to the hall and saw Wang Wei's new and improved technique. Some people immediately realized he had come, so they had a celebration, thanking the ancestors, the Heavenly Emperor. Wang Wei smiled and was about to leave. A little mouse is trying to sneak in? His projection immediately disappeared from the village. Chapter 939. Mercenary Wang Wei's projection appeared somewhere in the southern sea. He saw an invisible man floating above a small island, looking around. He seemed confused at first before regaining his bearing and checking the environment. The first thing he noticed was how ordinary he looked, especially with the bland black clothes he wore, followed by this person's deeply hidden pride and arrogance. The second thing he noticed was this man was utterly invisible. Sights, divine sense, sixth or seventh senses, and even divination could not detect this man's presence. It was like he was invisible to all known matter, concepts, living and non-living things. Invisible Grand Tao source, and the cultivation is at least 35%, thought Wang Wei as he watched the stranger. Furthermore, a pseudo-eternal. This man's ability was useless to someone of Wang Wei's caliber. As such, he could see him as if he was looking at a towering mountain during daylight. However, he was not complacent because he discovered he could not see some information about the latter. Someone paid him to come to assassinate me, but I could not find who it was, thought Wang Wei as his eyes read the man's fate line, knowing everything about him. This person was called the Hidden Shadow Emperor, the founder of a very popular and powerful mercenary that is very active in the commerce hub. His Hidden Hand mercenary is very famous across many world communities because the Hidden Shadow Emperor is known never to fail a mission. He has assassinated countless emperors, including 2 eternal emperors. Normally, the Hidden Shadow Emperor does not personally go on missions. He often has to remain low-key or underground to prevent garnering the attention of true heavenly Tao and continue staying in the lower dimension. As such, unless something happened to his mercenary group where he needed to step in, he never took missions. However, a while ago an employer offered him something he could not resist, so he chose to accept this assassination mission. Wang Wei calmly looked at this pseudo-eternal emperor. He saw someone paid a hefty price for his head, but he could not see the person who offered the mission. This fact did not change whether he used divination, yin-yang calculation, or looked in the past through the river of time. There are a few people or things who can resist my divination, so I only need to start from them, thought Wang Wei, eliminating a few obvious individuals like Old Man Nether and the Abyss Gap. Once everybody is eliminated, the only one remaining is the Spirit Genesis sect and their broken Empyrean artifact, analyzed Wang Wei with a sneer. He saw the Hidden Shadow Emperor wanted to land on that island to gather basic information about the world before starting his mission. So he appeared before him, shocking the proud assassin. Wang Wei saw his facial expression change from shock to bewilderment, then unwillingness, fear, regret, and in the end, returned to the calmness and ruthlessness of a peerless assassin. Interesting reaction, commented Wang Wei. Are you my target? Asked the Hidden Shadow Emperor. I should be, nodded Wang Wei. Are you no longer afraid? Why should I be? Now that you show up, it only means he'll have to do this the direct way. Yes, a peerless assassin should have the ability to kill his target in direct combat when necessary. Alas, you're not even a qualified assassin, let alone a peerless one. Who are you to judge me? Said the Hidden Shadow Emperor with a slightly raised voice. If you were truly capable, you would have detected the vast difference between us, acted on your based instinct and run away, said Wang Wei calmly. Alas, your pride and arrogance will be your downfall. The Hidden Shadow Emperor's first instinct was anger. After all, he had his pride, something he cultivated after successfully killing 2 eternal emperors. Although he did not grant them true death, he also forced them to spend countless yuan epochs to revive themselves. However, he controlled himself and checked his opponent's power. The result scared him, he could not detect a thing. The person before him seemed not to exist, an empty and undetectable void. Then, something that had not happened for a long time occurred to the Hidden Shadow Emperor. The dangerous senses he developed in his early days as an assassin before he proved the Tao activated and his body moved on its own, trying to run away. Alas, he discovered his body could not move. The Hidden Shadow Emperor immediately reacted like an elite cultivator, burning his body and soul to increase his strength. His aura was intense, sensed by countless powerful individuals of the world, making them pay attention to the current situation. I need to destroy my body and soul, was the only thought in the hidden Shadow Emperor's mind. He has a chance for a comeback as long as he does this. As such, he did not even care that his opponent rendered him powerless simply by releasing his aura. He only cared about saving his life. It won't change much even if you destroy your body. I control the Tao of Karma, said Wang Wei with a devious smile, pushing the hidden Shadow Emperor over the edge. Now, fear had overwhelmed his mind, making him full of regret. Battles between emperors are not simple and must follow certain rules to ensure survival. The first and main one is never to allow your opponent to keep possession of your body. Great emperors are eternal, so they can revive themselves as long as their Tao imprints remain attached to the grand Tao source. The Tao imprint has its own protective mechanism in the form that is not easy to discover or remove in the grand Tao source. There are two ways to remove it. Use Tao will or will manifestation, or use sealing methods and the passage of time to wash it out. However, these two methods hinged on the fact that Tao imprints can be discovered. Normal great emperors must use their opponents' bodies to access their Tao imprint before sealing it and using countless Yuan epics to remove it from the grand Tao source, thus effectively killing their enemy. Otherwise, searching for an adversary's Tao imprint is like searching for a single drop of water in a vast ocean. However, certain Taoists like karma, divination, yin-yang calculations, and heaven are very effective in finding the Tao imprints. So, after knowing his target had control over Karma Tao, the hidden Shadow Emperor knew his fate was sealed. Even if he destroyed his body, the latter could find his Tao imprint through the karmic connection they had after trying to assassinate him. Any last word? Asked Wang Wei. No, replied the hidden Shadow Emperor. He expected this day to come. His philosophy has always been that killers must expect to one day be killed. So, after taking his first life, he predicted this might be his eventual fate. Not even begging for your life? Said Wang Wei. I'm a person fond of talent. So, I can be persuaded to spare your life. I have my pride, replied the hidden Shadow Emperor. In his life he had two regrets. The first one was a special target he always regretted killing, and the second was that he did not become an eternal emperor. However, he made up for the second regret after assassinating the two Eternals. The hidden Shadow Emperor did not regret his upcoming death. That's a shame, said Wang Wei calmly. A flame enveloped the assassin, burning his soul and body, leaving two floating orbs, blue and red. The blue orb was the hidden Shadow Emperor's pure soul essence, which can be used to increase soul power and other applications. The red orb was the purified power of the Grand Tao source from refining the concepts composed of his body. Such power is the main ingredient for the Grand Tao Enlightening Pill, which can help great emperors comprehend their Grand Tao source. Wang Wei put these materials away as the Grand Tao source manifested before him, still looking like a river made of chains of different sizes. A karma thread emanated from his body, connected to a specific chain with a rune or symbol on it. He used his Tao will to remove the symbol, signaling the hidden Shadow Emperor was truly dead, with no chance of reviving. Wang Wei could hear the collective sigh of the world, thinking how such a powerful and prideful man died so easily. Such a fact made many people sad as they contemplated their mortality. Meanwhile, Wang Wei looked in the distance and muttered, I haven't attacked you yet, but you dare make the first move? He sneered while a terrifying killing intent flashed in his eyes. He rarely has a pure desire to kill. To Wang Wei, killing is the least efficient way to achieve things, and he will only do it when necessary. However, the Spirit Genesis sect awakened a pure desire for carnage and destruction deep inside him. Wang Wei immediately used his divine sense to call two people, so the void around him trembled as two people arrived in less than a second. 940 Counterattack, Unedited Chapter. Your Majesty, saluted Su Shi and Feng Heng, and Wang Wei nodded to them. The two watched them, each feeling somewhat lost. The intruder's strength was on par with them, but the Heavenly Emperor defeated him only using his aura. In other words, their fate would not be much different if they ever confronted the latter. The two knew the Heavenly Emperor's strength. After all, they guess his strength based on the terror they feel whenever they think of confronting him. However, they did not know exactly how powerful he was until now. No, even now they do not know the limit to his power. I called you to make a deal, said Wang Wei directly. I want you to attack someone along with his faction. In exchange, I will give you each the merit to increase your cultivation by 1% of the Grand Tao source. The two immediately frowned. The offer was tempting. After all, cultivating in their realm was extremely difficult, and even an increase of 1% is harder than cultivating from a mortal to the quasi-emperor realm. Currently, both Su Shi and Feng Heng's base cultivation was 21% Grand Dao source. Since the first court meeting, each increased their cultivation by 1%, and such progress was extremely fast by any standard. They achieved this result due to many factors such as the merit from the court, the blessing from heaven and earth as gods, their Dao discussion after the second meeting, the increase of soul power after the exchange with the emperor, and their use of time formation. Su Shi's main Dao is time, so she can work with the Dao ancestors from the academy that cultivated array Dao. Meanwhile, Feng Heng has the past, present, future Buddha scroll as an aid. Only with all these boosts did they achieve an increase of 1% in their cultivation in a little over 1,000 years. However, despite the benefits, they felt something was wrong, so they did not immediately agree. Your Majesty, why aren't you attacking them yourselves or using members of your sect? I'm sending you to gather information, replied Wang Wei, deciding that telling the truth was the best course of action in this situation. My intuition tells me something in that world can pose a threat to me, so I want to send you two to gather information. Your Majesty, I know what you want to say, said Wang Wei. I'm not sending you to your death. I will give you a talisman with my strength. You can use it to deal with the situation or run away if dangers arise. Furthermore, I will also take action to save you. The two became quiet, calculating the risks involved. Your Majesty, this poor monk wants to know what exactly can hurt you in that world. Wang Wei looked at him. It's a broken Empyrean artifact. Such news would be best to remain unknown. However, he did not care. If he wished to hide some information, he could wipe it from people's minds or even directly erase it from the annals of history. Of course, he revealed such information directly because it was not truly his main worry. He felt something odd with the Spirit Genesis sect, especially He-Shi. So, he did not rush to destroy them and chose this way to test the water first. Su Shi and Feng Heng became quiet again. At their cultivation level, they knew plenty of secrets of heaven and earth, so they knew how powerful Empyreans were. They could guess how terrible an artifact of such a level would be, even a broken one. You don't need to worry too much about the artifact. True heavenly Dao limits its power because of the balance mechanism. Wang Wei suddenly paused. Well, you might need to worry about it. To balance my presence, true heavenly Dao has probably lowered the restrictions on its usage. What sect do you want to attack? How powerful are they? How powerful is the target? Asked Su Shi. The Spirit Genesis sect from the Battle Spirit world. Their sect is very powerful and they have two immortal sovereigns. However, one of them is injured, so you only need to worry about one of them. As for He-Shi, I don't know how powerful he is. Every time Wang Wei tried to deduce information about him, a terrifying aura blocked his power, so he guessed He-Shi's body was somewhat infected by the Empyrean artifact's aura. My guess is he won't be much different than you two. If he is indeed too powerful, you can directly use my talisman to deal with him. The two pondered for a moment before Feng Heng said, this mission seemed a little too dangerous for the poor monk. Wang Wei glanced at this shameless monk. Final offer, merit for 2% increase in Grand Dao source, 3 Emperor Soul Pill and 1 Grand Dao Enlightening Pill each. Make it 5 Emperor Soul Pill and 3 Grand Dao Enlightening Pill and we have a deal, argued Su Shi. Anyway, after dealing with the Dao burial ground, you won't lack the material for these pills. Fine, but you must do your best and push him to reveal his trump card. Furthermore, you must do your best to keep the battle in their territory, causing as much damage as possible. A ruthless light flashed in his eyes. He knew such a plan would cause mass casualties amongst the mortals living in the Spirit Genesis sect, but he did not care. These mortals provided luck and destiny to the Genesis sect, so their destruction could also weaken them. My hand is already stained, so there is no need to care about a few more red spots, thought Wang Wei. Feng Heng appeared conflicted after hearing these conditions but only sighed and muttered, Amit Ba. He chanted a few prayers and did not say another word. Do you want me to sign a contract? Asked Wang Wei. There is no need. We believe your words, said Su Shi. In that case, let's fine-tune the plan, nodded Wang Wei, who spent the next half hour talking to these two. Afterward, Su Shi and Feng Heng returned to their factions after taking the talismans from Wang Wei. Meanwhile, the mighty heavenly emperor looked in the distance, his eyes ignoring the very concept of space. He used his divine sense to send a message to someone countless world communities away. Finally, his projection dispersed, waiting for the plan to begin. The world immediately entered a state of quiet. No one knew what these three almighty beings discussed, but they had a hunch something big was about to happen. Sea Race, Bai Shi Clan. Ao Shen watched the three discuss something in the sky before dispersing. He clenched his hands, almost forcing his nail to pierce his skin. Is it because I'm not an emperor? Unwillingness flashed in his eyes before returning to his focused state. I need to hurry. His previous plan was to use subtle and diplomatic ways to get what he wanted. Now he no longer wanted to wait. The Sea Race, Ancient Clan, and Sword-Casting Villa wondered what was going on and whether there were benefits to gain. It's obvious that eternal strength is the requirement for what's coming, but they wondered why the Heavenly Emperor did not choose them. Is it because he only wanted emperors, or does he look down on them? A person like the Heavenly Emperor has too much influence. His thoughts, ideologies, and beliefs can greatly influence the world. Even a passing joke he made could greatly change the world for the better or worse. As such, many people began to overthink, letting their minds run wild. However, Wang Wei did not know what was going on, nor did he care. His focus was only on what was about to happen in the battle spirit world. After handling things back in their sect, Su Shi and Feng Heng departed to the battle spirit world community. It would have taken them a few hours to arrive at their destination due to their strength and the far distance of the community relative to the myriad emperor world. However, Wang Wei directly teleported them inside the battle spirit world while hiding their tracks. He did not want the Chi Luck Dragon of the Spirit Genesis sect to detect its faction was about to experience a catastrophe. He also did not want He Shi's sixth sense to warn him of the upcoming attack, so Wang Wei directly acted and hid the track of these people. Luckily, things proceeded smoothly after his carefulness. Then, according to the plan, Feng Heng hid while Su Shi directly attacked. A towering hand containing the power of time descended on a beautiful palace at the very center of the entire plain. Who dares? Roared a voice before a young man appeared above the sect, He Shi. He was dressed in black and gold, with a noble and mighty temperament. Damn it, I'm too late, he thought as he activated the sect's arrays. His actions protected most of the sect, but some of the powers will still pass in. Furthermore, he did not have time to protect the surroundings, meaning anything or anyone not in the scope of the formation would be annihilated. 941 Battle of Eternals. Damn it, I've been tricked, cursed He Shi internally as he saw countless magical circles appearing above the sect. The attack's real purpose was not to create as much damage as possible but to place a seal that prevented other people from coming to help him. The worst thing about this situation is that he will have to take even longer than necessary to activate the 4-symbol mirror. He Shi glanced at his adversary with intense killing intent. What a beautiful woman, was the first thought that flashed in his mind. However, his killing intent did not diminish in the slightest. Who are you? Asked He Shi with terrible coldness emanating from his body. I have never met you, so we should not have any animosity. He could sense the aura of an eternal from this woman. More importantly, the latter's strength made him take this battle seriously. Your Spirit Genesis sect has offended so many people, so are you surprised that some random individual attacked you? Said Su Shi in her angelic voice. Most of the information he received from this sect originated from the Heavenly Emperor. However, she did not take things at face value and made a judgment solely based on the latter's words. In this brief encounter, she used the power of time to glance at the past of this world and saw how the Spirit Genesis sect usually acted, prideful and domineering. They made the fact they were the strongest sect in the lower dimension their only identity and personality. He Shi frowned after hearing what she said. It's true their sect offended many people, but most factions do not dare retaliate against them. Furthermore, they usually do things in the shadows so people often suspect it's them but they have no proof. You're making a mistake but there is still time to turn back. Don't wait until things get worse and your actions are irreparable. Your tone of superiority is disgusting, said Su Shi with a sneer. Then she no longer wasted any time with this person and rushed forward. The power of time enveloped her feet, and she instantly appeared next to He Shi. It was like she was always there in the first place. She clenched her beautiful hand and punched him in the face. Boom. He Shi took a dozen steps in the void before stopping. His face had no injury, not even a scratch. His body is on par with me, analyzed Su Shi. When she was in the Saint Realm, she realized the creator of the primordial chaos art was very young when creating this version, and the latter was probably not as talented as her. So she decided to improve the technique. After spending years studying divine runes, she optimized the immortal aperture realm of the technique, raising the lower limit of the technique from granting 3-leaf battle strength to 9-leaf. Alas, she did not have the time to cultivate the immortal aperture, so Su Shi did not reach 9 leaf before proving the Tao. However, afterward, not only did she finish cultivating her immortal aperture, but she also created the Tao aperture realm of this technique. Currently, her strength is 94 primordial dragon force, and once she finishes the Tao aperture, her strength should have entered the 4th realm of the true power Tao realm and achieved battle prowess equal to Tao ancestors with only her flesh. Afterward, she has to focus on creating and cultivating the chaos aperture, which should be enough for her until she opens the gate of power. As for the final realm of primordial aperture, Su Shi plans to create this stage after ascending and learning more about the world. She might come into contact with the original creator of the primordial chaos art, exchange ideas and compare which scripture is better. He looked at the woman before him, surprise flashing in his eyes. The Tao of Time? He immediately knew this battle would be more intense. Anyone who can prove the Tao with any of the outlaw Taos should not be underestimated, especially one who became an eternal emperor. He no longer hesitated as he awakened his Tao body. Red markings appeared on his face before trailing down to his upper chest, and his pupil and hair turned golden, releasing a terrifying battle intent. A gold and silver armor appeared around his body, covering every part of his body except the head. He raised his hand, and a pure black halberd materialized in his hand. Su Shi's eyes squinted after seeing her opponent's armor and weapon. She could tell it was the latter's proving Tao artifact, but she focused on it because of the hidden fearful aura she sensed. After the latter awakening, Su Shi sensed he only achieved a Grand Tao boost of 3%, but the latter's Emperor artifact gave a 10% Grand Tao boost. How is that possible? She doubted even the Heavenly Emperor's artifact could not be this powerful. Suddenly she thought of something. Did he use the power of the broken Empyrean artifact to refine and temper his proving Tao artifact? She immediately analyzed the pros and cons of this method. The pros are obvious, creating such a powerful weapon that every emperor would be envious. However, there is also a con. The Empyrean artifact should contain the Grand Tao source of its owner. If not careful, other lesser or weaker artifacts could be contaminated by the latter's Tao, rendering them useless. Su Shi did not waste time as she also awakened her Tao body. A cloud-like shawl floated above her head while the two ends embraced her body. In an instant she became more divine and noble, just like an immortal goddess descending to the world of mortals. She raised her hand and a small cauldron or pot floated above her palm, releasing the terrifying power of primordial chaos. Splitting the heaven, he rushed toward his opponent, dropping his halberd with all his might. A terrifying power capable of splitting the entire world emanated from the weapon as it dropped down with unparalleled momentum. Power Tao? No, it should be Battle Tao that uses resonance to control Force Tao. Su Shi controlled her myriad Tao pot, making it grow to the size of a normal cauldron. The pot released a gray fog that stood before the mighty halberd. Following the clash, nothing happened. There was no loud sound, no energy or force releases or any effect on the surrounding space. It was like the weapon landed on a sack of cotton or clouds. The fog absorbed all the attack. Weapon 10%, awakening 3%, Tao will 2%, for an overall strength of 35, analyzed Su Shi. There is still the possibility of his soul, other source technique, or using some method to elevate the strength of his fleshly body. Only in the infant fiend god force could the body grant any Grand Tao boost, and based on their first confrontation, Su Shi knew his opponent was not there. However, she did not immediately rule out the possibility. Endless blade of time. Thousands of swords appeared above the sky, each glowing with the power of time. They descended on He faster than he could blink, think, or react. They skipped time and directly attacked a few seconds into the future, where he was unprepared and could not notice anything. Luckily, He main Tao is Battle Tao, so the thing he lacked most was battle IQ or experience. His halberd spun in a circular motion, blocking any swords that came close to him. Then He face changed as he stopped his actions and proceeded to evade instead. Great intuition, thought Su Shi. Her actions were only a trick hiding her real objective. She wanted to revert the time on her opponent's artifact to the period before it became so powerful. Alas, He noticed, stopped blocking the swords of time, and evaded instead. It doesn't matter that he evades since I accomplished one of my objectives. He can evade her attack, but the same cannot be said for the area. The Spirit Genesis sect was mostly intact due to their sect's protective array, but the land beyond their protection was devastated by this one attack. Su Shi could hear the sound of something crying in agony and anger, followed by a sense of rejection between heaven and earth. She knew it was Heavenly Dao's hatred for her actions. Unfortunately, the latter is powerless to do anything about it. Weakness is the original sin, thought Su Shi, a lesson she learned the hard way as she helplessly watched her husband dying in her arms. Supreme Divine Thunder Punishment. He used his halberd as a spear, rushing toward his opponent with a stabbing motion. Purple lightning and thunder surrounded him, annihilating everything in its path. Su Shi discovered this attack had the attribute of divine punishment thunder, meaning it could not be evaded. She did not panic, releasing more gray fog from the pot. It swallowed it without much effort as soon as it came into contact with this potent thunder. All things returned to chaos, muttered He, who immediately figured out what had happened. He wanted to distance himself from his opponent without hesitation, but it was too late. A sword made out of the same fog had materialized in Su Shi's hand, and she slashed him. 942 Battle of Eternals 2. Su Shi's sword should have returned He to a state of chaos, similar to the universe's beginning. However, this was not what happened. He used a technique to rebound the attack, almost injuring Su Shi with her own attack. Luckily, she had tremendous control over her Dao, taking advantage while they were in close proximity and the fact she was distracted dealing with his rebound. He had butted her. His head amassed infinite mass and density to the point it could even destroy conceptual beings like eternal great emperors. Boom. Su Shi exploded into trillions of pieces. However, He was not happy, instead he frowned. He sensed the power of time. Time remnants? He analyzed. The person he killed is a past or future version of her or a projection from an alternative reality. Su Shi appeared a few hundred meters away with a red thread connecting to He in her hand. She then raised her hand, using it as a sharp weapon to cut off the thread. My karma thread? He's face changed. If he let her cut off the thread, many things could happen to him. For example, losing his memories, losing an important part of him, or even losing some of his strength. Threading on Infinity Step. He did not hesitate to use his most powerful battle technique, which allowed him to reach incomprehensible speed. He was so fast that he was stepping on the very concept of infinite speed itself. So, before she could react, He was beside her and gave her the meanest uppercut punch in the world. Su Shi turned into a brilliant light that flew into the heavens and crashed into the sun, her beautiful jaw obliterated. His Battle Grand Dao source is extremely versatile, she thought. Battle Dao is a battle-oriented Dao and is capable of using source resonance and controlling multiple Daos. In conclusion, it's a very terrifying Dao in the hands of the right person. Furthermore, I have been too reserved in our confrontation. In this brief clash, she discovered she was always worried about He removing the seal on the Spirit Genesis sect and gaining access to the broken Empyrean artifact. These thoughts flashed in her mind in less than a nanosecond. Then she readjusted her state. She rushed toward him, but she was not alone. Su Shi dragged the entire sun with her, crashing on He and the continent. That bitch, is she crazy? Roared He as he realized the consequences of such an act of madness. He rushed to the sky with the intention of stopping her. Unfortunately, the situation turned for the worse. Billions of suns appeared behind Su Shi, and they were all real. She created time fractures with the sun as the basis, thus replicating it into billions of parts. Opening heaven slash. He slashed his halberd, recreating the aura and power of the world when it was first created when it was in a state of pure chaos. With the power of this attack, it should be easy to obliterate these billions of suns. Using the power of chaos against me? She sneered before pausing for a moment. No, he should be smarter than this. In that case, this attack is a distraction. A subtle power of time flashed in her eyes and she saw the future. Her conjecture was correct. He's real attack was his battle spirit, the war god spirit. Su Shi controlled her myriad Dao pot to absorb the subtle chaos power emanating from her opponent's slash. Immediately afterward, a creature with blue skin dressed in dark armor with two red horns appeared above He's head. It roared like a savage and mindless machine, making the entire world tremble. It looked at Su Shi and the billion suns with its dark gold eyes before punching them. The punch seemed to be able to perfectly control all its power. Its control was so superb that it allowed the creature to generate 100 times its normal power. Anyone who saw this punch would tell this creature created and tempered this attack after experiencing millions of battles. The entire creature gave the aura that it was bred for war and battle. Unfortunately, Su Shi had long predicted this attack. She raised her hand to gather countless red threads. World Karma Seal. She gathered the karma of the entire world before using it as a potent seal, drastically reducing the strength of that punch. The fact it was not completely sealed was a testament to how powerful that simple punch was. Boom. The power released from that punch destroyed hundreds of millions of suns. Unfortunately, the rest crashed on He-She and the world. Normally, the sun is nothing for a being of He-She's level. Alas, Su-Shi infused the power of chaos to their core, turning them into chaos suns with unimaginable power. However, she did a great job hiding their aura to lure He-She into a sense of complacency. The world was in chaos after so many chaos suns dropped on it. The spacetime continuum was unstable, the laws of heaven and earth became chaotic, and trillions of lives died. The situation would have been worse had those other factions acted promptly and activated their faction's Emperor array. At the center of the explosion, He-She floated in the void. His armor was intact, but his face melted, leaving only part of his skull. However, he instantly regenerated his handsome face. Just like he failed to inject his Tao will into Su-Shi's body in that last attack, she did not succeed. As such, this kind of injury is nothing to an eternal emperor. He-She looked at the destruction around him, and a great anger rushed into his mind. As the most powerful sect in the world, the Spirit Genesis considered the battle spirit world their property. But now, some stranger came in and caused so much damage to their possessions. Calm down, and think about the positives, thought He-She, exhaling deeply. After fixing the mess she created, I should receive some merit from heavenly Tao. Although he convinced himself of this, he knew the loss of the sect was not as simple as seen. From this attack, they will lose the prestige gathered for countless generations, affecting their chi luck and destiny. As the strongest sect, how could they suffer such tremendous loss? How come they couldn't even protect their world? Many people will have this idea and begin to test the Spirit Genesis sect. If things develop in the worst direction, some of their enemies will become bold and directly attack them. He-She finally calmed down, so he used his divine sense to send a secret message to some factions. Prepare to open the void battlefield. His voice was cold and full of killing intent, indicating a terrible fate would befall anyone who did not follow his order. He looked at Su-Shi, his eyes red with anger and hatred. However, the reply he received was indifference and maybe even a little scorn. Su-Shi did not feel bad about her actions. Being of their level have different levels of morality. Furthermore, she understood that if she did not do this to the battle spirit world, they would have done it to the myriad emperor world. She read the history of the martial hegemony world and knew they were once invited by a foreign Taoist faction, almost devastating their world. As such, she knew how cruel battles between different planes or worlds were. Su-Shi even believed the assassin sent to kill the heavenly emperor also received orders to cause as much chaos as possible. As such, she will never show compassion regarding such a thing. Battle Spirit World, a few minutes ago. What is the situation? Asked Patriarch He. No one can leave or enter the sect because of the powerful seal. I know this. I'm asking what are we doing to deal with the situation? His face was red, trying to hide the anger he was feeling. Never in his wildest dream would he have thought someone had the balls to attack their sect. All our immortals and insurgents are attacking simultaneously, but the seal is not budging, replied Elder Jia, stressed out beyond any level he has ever felt in his entire life. Even the ancestors can't do anything? Sadly no. Patriarch He grunted, he caressed his temple, trying to think of a quick solution. Suddenly he felt a wind around and looked up. Ancestor. We need to leave the formation as soon as possible. Did something happen to my son? He hurriedly asked. Not yet. Because of the seal, my senses are blurry. However, I have a feeling the enemy's plan is not so simple. Patriarch He sighed in relief. How do we deal with the situation? Without activating the 4-symbol mirror, the only way I can think of is to use the weapon slaves. However, is it worth it to use them now? The artifact will take too long to activate, and the weapon slaves are a last resort. Our best option is to use one of the protecting Tao talismans to open a hole in this seal so that I can leave and assist the Patriarch. "943 Battle of Eternals, 3. Protecting Tao Talisman, huh?" muttered Patriarch He, feeling a slight pain in his heart at the prospect of using these things. The Spirit Genesis sect has a few things that could be considered the ultimate foundation of the sect, and the first one is obviously the 4-symbol mirror. As long as the mirror is here, the sect can survive any trial, tribulation, or catastrophe. Another ultimate foundation of the Spirit Genesis sect is the protecting Tao talismans, derived from the 4-symbol mirror. Their ancestor found a way to condense the Empyrean power from the artifact into a talisman. The power of this talisman is more mobile than the mirror as they do not require a long time to activate. The only downside to these talismans is it's hard to control their powers, and even one thing requires an extremely long time to condense. A great emperor can use their Tao to accelerate the process, and Eternals can condense 2 talismans during their stay in the lower dimension. Fine, you can use it, said Patriarch He after hesitating for a few seconds. Then please give access, said Ancestor He. The Patriarch was momentarily confused before remembering the sect's rules. Only the Patriarch can activate the ultimate foundation of the sect. Now that his son could not be reached and it was an emergency as the former Patriarch, only he could grant permission to access the talismans. Patriarch He gave the ancestor his token without wasting time, and the latter disappeared. A few minutes later, everyone in the sect senses a powerful immortal energy followed by an even more terrifying power. The seal above their sect trembled and cracked, making everyone ecstatic. Unfortunately, these people's smiles did not last long. The cracks healed themselves. Damn it, how could this seal be so powerful? Yelled Ancestor He as he tried to mobilize as many immortal chi allowed to power this talisman. Unfortunately, his attempt was pointless. The seal did not originate from Su Shi but was condensed by Wang Wei himself, containing his peak power of 69% Grand Dao Source. The Dao protecting talisman is powerful, but its strength was not close to the mirror, probably reaching 60% Grand Dao Source. Under normal circumstances, such strength is enough to walk sideways in the lower dimension. Unfortunately, the Spirit Genesis sect met a freak like Wang Wei. After all, he did not acquire the title of Immeasurable Emperor for nothing. Patriarch, we need to use a second talisman. Are you serious? Asked Patriarch He, feeling a pain in his heart, thinking of their sect's loss in this attack. This is not the time to hesitate. Our loss will be even greater if something happens to the sect master. Patriarch He remembered his son who was in danger and gritted his teeth. Don't hesitate, use 2 more talismans to ensure nothing goes wrong. In the distance, the immortal sovereign showed a rare look of approval. He can destroy this ceiling and reverse the situation with 2 more talismans. So he did not hesitate and used 2 more protecting Dao talismans. With this boost he easily penetrated the seal, making Ancestor He smile. Alas, his happiness was also short. An unknown power reinforced the seal. Luckily, he reacted swiftly and left the sect before the seal was completely reinforced. Ancestor He frowned after exiting the seal. He found himself in a golden world with chants echoing in the background. Buddhism? Donor, unfortunately you cannot leave, said a peaceful and gentle voice. Then a strange monk appeared before Ancestor He. The reason he said it was strange was not because the person was a monk, a religion that should have been extinct in the lower dimension, but because he sensed Taoist principles from this monk's body. You're with the attacker? This poor monk is only here to prevent you from interfering, so there is no need for us to fight, said Feng Heng. Do you think that's possible? Feng Heng sighed. His mission was indeed only to prevent the latter from interfering. According to the Heavenly Emperor, true Heavenly Tao seems very lenient when it comes to breaking the rules toward the Spirit Genesis sect. As such, if their immortal sovereign is pushed to the limit, it's possible for them to use true Tier 11 strength in the lower dimension or, at the very least, come close to it. The best plan for this battle is to drag him down while secretly injuring him. Immortal sovereigns have a higher healing ability than Tao ancestors, immortal venerables, and even primarchs, but it is still not on par with great emperors and eternals. So, as long as he is injured, he must spend countless generations returning to his peak. In that case, let's begin, donor, said Feng Heng as brilliant golden light enveloped him. For this battle, he brought one of the supreme treasures of Buddhism, the Chaos Treasure, Buddha World. As such, he had the home advantage. Battle Spirit World, Eastern Region. The Battle Spirit World is a long, continuous continent with 4 seas in the north, south, west, and east. Despite having no break between continents like the Myriad Emperor world, the continent is also divided into 5, the central, east, west, north, and south regions. Because of the overbearing nature of the Spirit Genesis sect, all the top factions of the world moved out from the central region, leaving only a few weak emperor lineages that served as the eyes of these factions, keeping tabs on the Spirit Genesis sect. So, when Su Shi attacked, everyone paid attention to the central region. When she dropped billions of chaos suns into that area, these factions acted to create barriers to prevent the destruction from reaching other regions. Their actions were somewhat successful. Unfortunately, they did not know these suns contained Choas power and underestimated the destruction it would have caused. Regardless of the final outcome, the one who suffered the greatest loss was still the Spirit Genesis sect, and they were more than happy with the result. The Purple Chi sect is the overlord of the eastern region, and it's also known as the second most powerful faction of the world with 10 great emperors, one of which was an eternal. Inside a room was a young, handsome man dressed in a purple robe with a golden crown, long black hair, and a jade pendant hanging on his side. The young man opened his eyes, revealing his 2 different color eyes, one blue and one red. The purple spirit eyes is a unique physique of the Purple Chi sect, and this generation's patriarch was born with it. The sect celebrated and thought they could cultivate another eternal, taking another step to catch up to the Spirit Genesis sect. Alas, things didn't go well. The Purple Spirit King lost to He Shi in the final battle and was severely injured. His situation would have been worse if he had not used all his means to escape. After hearing He Shi's command to open the void battlefield, the Purple Spirit King frowned before calling for a world council, contacting all the factions in the world. After sending the call, he activated the formation to send a projection to the meeting room. He was the first to arrive since he called the meeting, so the Purple Spirit King took his position at this round table. The next person to arrive was the cult master of the ancient Spirit Mountain, a cult that worshipped spirits with 11 great emperors. Although this lineage has the same number of emperors as the Spirit Genesis sect, before this generation, they had no Eternals, and 2 of their emperors were only second class. However, they are considered one of the oldest sects, and their founder, a pseudo-Eternal, pioneered the world's cultivation system. As such, they were not considered amongst the best in the world, top 5 sure but not among the top 3. The third person to arrive was the War Spirit Temple's War Priest. He was an elderly man dressed in a loose white robe with golden designs weaved into them. However, the man released a naturally oppressive aura, and his bulging muscles did not alleviate this problem. The War Spirit Temple held the position of the third most powerful faction, with 9 great emperors and 1 eternal. Soon, all the top factions showed up for this meeting. You've heard He Shi know the Battle God Emperor's order. What do you think? Asked the Purple Spirit King, not hiding his contempt and hatred. Fuck him, said the War Priest, almost yelling. Veins appeared on his neck and overly toned biceps, and he released a terrifying aura. No one was surprised by this outburst. In this generation, He Shi awakened a spirit related to battle and war. As such, the Spirit Genesis sect bullied and humiliated the War Spirit Temple to better cultivate their heaven chosen. No matter how we feel about him, we cannot ignore his order, said Cult Master Haoying. The outsider is causing chaos in our world, we cannot let them. I have a better proposal, said the Saintess of the Flower Spirit Valley, a sect with 5 great emperors and 1 eternal, all women. We let the foreigners cause chaos and weaken the Spirit Genesis sect. That way we may have a chance. The room becomes quiet, everybody with their own thoughts. "944 Secret Machinations, Unedited Chapter. Your idea is fine and all, but what about the aftermath? Yes, once the Spirit Genesis sect begins to liquidate us, what can we do? Have you guys truly lost your spine?" asked the War Priest. After this war they will focus on recuperating, how could they care about us? And in the unlikely chance that He Shi is dead, the muscle man did not continue his words, making some people revel in their imagination. Unfortunately, these people knew it was not a simple thing to kill an eternal emperor. As tempting as this idea is, we all know the Spirit Genesis sect will remain dominant as long as they have that weapon, said the Purple Spirit King, exhaling deeply. For some reason heaven and earth have begun to change in recent years. The restrictions on that weapon are beginning to loosen, said the seer, an elderly man dressed sloppily and with all white eyes with no pupil. He is the leader of the Fate Spirit sect. Their sect only had 3 great emperors, but their founder was an eternal who proved the Tao with divination Tao, and all other emperors awakened a fate-related spirit, making them extremely valuable in the world as the main source of intelligence gathering. Lord Seer, do you know the reason? Asked everybody respectfully. Although this old man was not the strongest of this group, everybody feared and respected him because of the knowledge and secrets he knew. The secrets of heaven cannot be easily detected. I only know it's because of some mechanism of heaven and earth. Does this have to do with the recent changes in the upper dimension? Maybe, replied the seer, making everybody quiet. Their situation is worse than expected if the latter says it is true. It was difficult for the Spirit Genesis sect to activate their weapon in the past. But now they learned it will be easier for them to do so. In that case, let's forget it, said the Purple Spirit King. Let's protect our region and help him activate the Void battlefield. I can help with your situation. Everyone looked at the person who spoke and their faces changed. An unknown stranger was in their meeting, and they did not even notice it. Who are you? Roared the War Priest. You're a very spirited individual, aren't you? Said the intruder. As the person gazed at the War Priest, the man felt the fear of God for the first in his life. His war spirit, which was the embodiment of boldness and never backing down, almost crumbled, and his Tao heart almost shattered. Luckily, the intruder removed his gaze. I am the person responsible for this attack, and I can help your situation. Your Excellency, whoever you are, it does not change the fact you are an outsider, said the Purple Spirit King, secretly swallowing his saliva to calm himself down. He did not succumb to the same gaze as the War Priest, but he felt an instinctual fear when the person revealed his presence. There is no point in saying these hypocritical words now, said Wang Wei's projection. You have an enemy and the same enemy happens to be my enemy, so why can't we be friends? No one said anything for a while before the Flower Spirit Saintess asked, How can you help us? Simple, I will give you an excuse why you could not help she, replied Wang Wei. I will send people to attack your factions, and that should be more than enough to explain to the Spirit Genesis sect once the battle ends. This might work. However, no one said anything afterward. Wang Wei shook his head. Your hearts are full of fear. You have been oppressed for so long that you have developed the mentality of the weak, the mentality of losers. These people's faces changed and became ugly. They wanted to rebut him, but they did not dare. For one, they were scared of the intruder's display of power, and second, they knew he was correct. Let's fucking do it, roared the War Priest. Huh? You've awakened so soon? It seems I underestimated you. He thought this guy would have to spend years to get out of the fear he instilled in him, trying to repair his Tao heart. But in such a short time he awakened and sublimated his Tao heart. The War Priest snorted, Our War Spirit Temple does not walk the path of invincibility, so defeat is acceptable to us. However, fear is only for cowards and the weak-minded. Although he knew he could not defeat this man, even in his entire life, he would never allow himself to cower before anyone, no matter who they were. Interesting, said Wang Wei as he looked at this man. With your current state, it's only a matter of time before you reach a higher level with your temples. War God record. If you can wash away your karma, you might prove the Tao and even have a chance at achieving eternity. How do you know so much? Asked the War Priest, baffled. Because he's the embodiment of fate itself, uttered the seer while trembling. Everyone looked at him, not hiding their puzzlement. So, do you agree with my offer? Asked Wang Wei. Why not? Said the Purple Spirit King, who suddenly felt envious of the War Priest. A secret part of him felt it was a great honor to receive praise from the intruder. Of course he would never admit this truth. Wise choice, said Wang Wei, not giving the others time to make a choice. He raised his hand, and a subtle change occurred in this illusory space. Everybody felt something had happened, but they did not know exactly what. Sir? Asked the Saintess. Don't worry. I'm only taking precautions to prevent anyone from revealing the truth to the Spirit Genesis sect under threat or temptation. This was indeed a problem, but these people wondered why this outsider was so concerned about their world. Shouldn't he be glad they can turn against each other, plundering the world into chaos? Wang Wei did not explain anything to them and prepared to leave. My lord, wait, said the seer. His projection stood up from his seat and kowtow on the ground. Please take me as your disciple. Sir Seer, said multiple people as they stood up from their seats. It was one thing to work with an outsider but something entirely different to become their disciple. You do not understand, said the seer with a deep sigh. Our founder's greatest regret is he could only peek at a corner of the wonder that is fate. Meanwhile, all our descendants have fallen into the outlaw trial or are scared even to participate. We thought it was impossible for anyone to succeed, but a living example exists before me. If I don't take this chance, I know I will regret it for the rest of my life. People looked at the seer with a different look. Some understood while others were still confused. After all, not everyone knew. Wang Wei calmly looked at the elderly man before him and said, I have no desire to take in an apprentice now, and your destiny and luck are not enough to bear the karma of being my apprentice. However, I admire your desire to pursue the Tao, so I'll give you a gift. He raised his hand to condense some of his understanding of fate into a talisman. The talisman disappeared in the distance, appearing before the seer in the Fate Spirit sect. "Thank you, Lord, for the gift," said the seer, still remaining in his kowtow form. Although disappointed he could not become the latter's apprentice, such a gift is enough to become the foundation of their sect, allowing them to better peer at the secrets of fate while reducing the price they must make. Wang Wei nodded. He had his reasons for caring so much about the battle spirit world and granting this man such a gift. The heavenly court must expand to the lower dimension, having a relationship or contact with all heavenward world. As such, he did not want to leave a bad impression on these people with Su Shi's actions. Otherwise, it would become troublesome in their future interactions, so he needed to alleviate their relationship to the best of his ability. He does not hope these people will help him with his work. He will be satisfied if they do not interfere. If he plays his card correctly, the elderly man might become his aide when he intervenes in the affairs of this world. At the very least, he will be an ambassador that connects the two worlds. Once his work finished, Wang Wei's projection disappeared. Myriad Emperor World, Heavenly Court. Wang Wei continued to observe everything that was happening in the battle spirit world. "It was truly a mistake for our world to alienate ourselves from the outside," he commented. He did not show up only to instigate these factions but also because he wanted to analyze and copy their void battlefield, since he had the same idea for his battle with Old Man Nether. Eternal Emperor's destructive ability is too powerful, so most heaven will create a void battlefield, a special dimension where these godlike entities can use their full power without affecting the world in the slightest. Heavenly Daos limit is second class, so any first class and above emperors can destroy the world if they go on a rampage. Wang Wei looked in the distance. He saw many worlds with a void battlefield. It's a product of a well-developed civilization. The Immortal Avenue Pact reduced the presence and battle of immortal powerhouses. However, if the world had a void battlefield, so many lives and world source could have been saved. When the heaven-devouring emperor went on a rampage, Wang Wei could imagine how many people died in that catastrophe. If the world had communicated with the outside and built a void battlefield, they could have forced him into it and saved much effort. "Forget it, there is no point in thinking about this," concluded Wang Wei. Building a void battlefield was not a simple thing and needed very rare and valuable materials. Furthermore, his task is even more difficult since he wants to build one capable of bearing the strength of Empyreans. "Maybe I can get merit for this thing," suddenly thought Wang Wei. "If I can change the order of the entire lower dimension, making that once cultivator with the strength of first class and above release certain fluctuations, they will instantly be teleported to the void battlefield." His eyes lit up since the idea was feasible. Upon success, he will save countless lives and save multiple worlds, countless world source. If I want to succeed, I will need a special void battlefield and also enter the taboo realm of Battle Realm. The best way to accomplish this plan would be to go to each world community and change things. However, Wang Wei felt it would be better for his strength to enter the taboo field and do it in one step. Such a method would ensure higher success, and he won't have to deal with all these people he knows will try to stop him for one reason or another. 9:45 The battle reaches its pinnacle. He Shi's fierce eyes glanced at Su Shi while observing his surroundings. The world was in utter darkness without a sun. The yang and yin were out of balance, with yin energy overabundant. So many people died, and with the overwhelming amount of yin energy, countless ghosts or evil spirits were being born with each passing second. He Shi's mind flashed to how peaceful and beautiful the world used to be and compared it to now, and his anger maxed out. Fighting heaven and earth, a terrifying fighting intent manifested around He Shi drastically increased his aura. A source technique? Thought Su Shi with a serious gaze, analyzing the situation. She saw the latter condensed an immense amount of fighting intent that exists between heaven and earth to boost his strength. He Shi waved his halberd like it was a toy with no weight. Then he disappeared and reappeared before Su Shi and smashed down. The space around her compressed, not giving her an opportunity to react or escape. With that swing of the halberd, it was like the entire world was against her. Boom! Su Shi's body could not withstand the power behind that attack, so she exploded into a brilliant mist of light. He Shi frowned as he knew things were not so simple. As expected, less than a second afterward, her body recondensed on its own. Life and death Tao? It was already difficult to kill eternal emperors, but now he was facing someone who controlled these two Daos that were excelling at healing or overcoming death. His strength increased only by 1% Grand Tao source, yet I find it difficult to keep up, thought Su Shi with a sigh. Since one attack cannot kill you, I will use 1,000 more, said He Shi with a sneer. Dividing heaven and earth, He proved the Tao using battle and martial arts, so his arsenal of techniques are diverse. One of his signature techniques used dividing Tao, allowing him to separate things into two or multiple parts. So, with this one slash, he had the power to divide the entire world into two. He focused all the strength of this technique on the attack, targeting only Su Shi and minimizing the damage to the battle spirit world. Chaos Armor, Su Shi's myriad Tao pot, released a great amount of gray clouds, condensing them into a shield around her. Crack. Her defense almost crumbled as cracks materialized all over the cloud. Her face became pale as blood trickled down the corner of her mouth. One drop of blood fell on the ground and, before hitting the earth, turned into a vast ocean that flooded countless dynasties, both mortal and spiritual. Dividing primordial chaos, He attacked a second time, targeting his opponent's unique power. As his halberd fell down, it now contained the power to divide primordial chaos, the fundamental force that exists at the beginning of the chaos universe. Su Shi knew the power of this attack and the fact she could not block it. So, she abandoned most of her defense and focused on the opponent's Tao will. All she needed to do was to prevent He's Tao will from entering her body and soul, then she could revive herself. Boom. The fog was useless before the halberd. The myriad Tao pot flew into the distance with some scratches on its body. As for Su Shi's beautiful body, it exploded into a trillion scattered particles. Damn it, thought He, who knew he failed to kill his opponent. He secretly exhaled to calm down. Why haven't these guys opened the void battlefield yet? He took a brief moment to check the situation and noticed 4 potent aura in each of the other regions. Are they also attacked? A part of him felt relieved after knowing he was not the only one suffering. However, he also understood this was a targeted attack, and his enemy did not want other people to come to his aid. Su Shi reappeared from the drop of blood that fell on the ground. She looked at her opponent with great concentration. You should understand you are not my opponent. Why don't you save us both the effort and stop this pointless battle, said He calmly. Despite his overwhelming anger, he knew this was the best choice for the current situation. Killing a foreign eternal emperor was extremely difficult since he would need to erase her history, but that involved finding her identity first. Tell me who you are and who sent you, then our grudge will end. Do you think you're the only one with a source technique? Asked Su Shi with a sneer, making He frown. His first thought was that his opponent was bluffing. Source techniques are rare but not the point he believed only he would have them. According to his analysis, his attacker is a young eternal, proving the Tao in this generation, meaning she should not have much time to create her own source technique. As for an existing technique from whatever factions she originated from, well, He believed that if she had such techniques she would have used them as a primary Grand Tao boost at the beginning of the battle, unless her source technique was one of her trump cards. No, my assumptions are wrong. She cultivates time Tao, so she should have plenty of time to create a source technique. He immediately wanted to stop her, but it was too late. A mysterious aura emanated from Su Shi's body. Her closed eyes and facial expression displayed intense sadness and longing. What is this? Emotions? No, it should be an obsession. During their Tao discussion, the Heavenly Emperor said something that greatly resonated with Su Shi. According to him, there are a few things that can allow any individual to rebel against their fate and create miracles. The first one is unparalleled intelligence and wisdom, the second is unmatched willpower, the third is an unwavering Tao heart, and lastly, unrelenting obsessions. After hearing these words, Su Shi felt inspired, so she created a unique source technique called Seed of Obsession. She used her desire and obsession to revive her husband into a seed before nourishing it with the power of time. With the power of time, she can experience countless alternative timelines where she does everything possible to revive her husband but ultimately fails. However, no matter the trial and tribulation, she never stopped trying, thus nourishing her obsession. Cultivating this technique is extremely difficult and requires people who have deep desire or obsession. Furthermore, there is a flaw in this technique in which it's easy for people to be devilized as the obsession takes over their soul and spirit, turning them into mindless puppets only dedicated to completing their obsession. As the creator of this technique, even she is not immune to this possible side effect. As of now, this source technique only grants her an increase of 1.5% Grand Tao source, but there is still room for improvement. As long as she continues nourishing her obsession, the boost can reach a minimum of 5% and even reach a higher level. Additionally, this technique is also a great way to temper the state of mind and Tao heart. Su Shi opened her eyes and they had turned completely pink. Her pot spewed more gray fog, which then condensed into a beautiful white sword. She instantly materialized before he, slashing down her weapon. True Death Sword. Su Shi's sword contained the power of true death, meaning she would kill her opponent's Dao body, soul, and even Dao. If she kills he with this sword, reviving himself, even as an eternal emperor, will become 100 times more difficult and require as many resources. The battle god emperor knew the consequences of not blocking that sword. So, he reacted faster than he ever had in his entire life. Unfortunately, a river had manifested above him, freezing time for the entire world. So, he watched his death rapidly approaching. As a great emperor, he is semi-detached from space-time itself, hence his immortality or infinite lifespan, so his mind could still barely operate. I have no choice now, he thought as he used one of his trump cards. 5 spots of light appeared on his body, focusing on the upper and lower torso area. A terrifying aura emanated from he as his fleshly body suddenly increased drastically, breaking into the infant fiend god realm. Bang! He flew away, crashing into the earth, generating a terrifying force that could annihilate the entire central region. Luckily, he reacted swiftly and used his soul to quell the destructive force his landing created. He coughed a mouthful of blood, but he did not care about that. His armor was broken, leaving a deep wound on his chest that was pulsating with black energy. Her Dao will, thought he with an ugly expression. His opponent successfully planted their Dao will inside his body, and it was a strange one too. He could feel the will was constantly exuding waves or fluctuations, making it difficult for others to remove or influence it. In other words, he's current injury is considered a Dao injury, and it's not something he can easily deal with. What were these 5 lights? Thought Su Shi, analyzing the situation. Did he refine his 5 internal organs with 5 spirits of the 5 elements attributes? That's the only explanation she could come up with, but she did not understand why he's body was so weak with such a technique. Unless whatever technique he is using is not finished yet, or it can only temporarily boost his fleshly body. She glanced at him, analyzing every detail. His aura is weird. His strength did not seem to increase, but his overall defense seemed to be boosted by a few %. The situation immediately changed the battle. Su Shi's current strength should be above he by 0.5% Grand Dao source. However, with the anomaly of his new technique, his defense increased by another 2% Grand Dao source. Since only his defense increased, I only need to do one thing, try to aggravate my Dao will inside his body and weaken him. Su Shi watched the battle between the Heavenly Emperor and Di Tian, learning from it, especially Wang Wei's application of his Dao will and will manifestation. Then she created her own application called Fluctuation, using her knowledge and understanding of music as a base. "946 True Purpose." Boom. 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 Su Shi and he kept clashing. Their battle took them everywhere in the central region, wreaking havoc everywhere. By now there were no living beings in that area. A few emperor lineages were lucky enough and acted swiftly enough to use their sex emperor array to run away from the center of the battlefield. Alas, the mortals and weaker lineages did not have such luck. If not for the other factions isolating the central region, the devastation caused by these two would have spread throughout the entire battle spirit realm. Their clashes were non-stop. Upon closer observation, it's obvious he was in a hurry. Meanwhile, Su Shi was more composed, focusing on preventing her opponent from healing by removing her Dao will. However, she also was not in the best shape. She discovered that prolonged fighting would affect the seed of obsession, increasing her chances of being devilized. She realized her technique was still flawed and needed to be improved. Buddha World, Feng Heng was having the easiest time. He only needed to keep his opponent from leaving. Meanwhile, Ancestor He, who had countless minor injuries, gritted his teeth in anger as he tried his best to kill the damn monk. "Donor, why must you do this?" said Feng Heng as he slapped his opponent away with a shining golden palm. "You damn monk, you will regret your actions. Donor, anger is not good for your body. So, let's stop this pointless battle." Ancestor He was disgusted by this monk's smug face. "Do you think I don't know where you're from? Oh, please enlighten me." The path of Buddhism was cut off from the myriad emperor world. It is the source of the absolute beginning magic. Only from there must it be resolved and allow monks to appear in this world. Feng Heng sighed. This poor monk cannot belittle the heroes of the world. Ancestor He frowned. This was not the reaction he expected after revealing the news. The latter did not seem to care about revealing his identity. Donor, you seem to have something in your mind. You don't seem to care about your identity being revealed, even with the prospect of an interplanar war. That is correct. Why? What do you think? Asked Feng Heng with a smile, and Ancestor He's face suddenly changed. He remembered when he tried to pierce through the seal around the sect. A mysterious force appeared and prevented his action, and that power was extremely scary. Does the Myriad Emperor world have a powerhouse with such power? Impossible. Must be some sort of weapon. However, such a conclusion did not make the situation any better. Such strength is capable of competing with the four-symbol mirror. Therefore, it was not in the Spirit Genesis sect's favor for their enemy to have such a weapon. Do you think such a simple trick can affect my mind? Said Ancestor He with a sneer. Donor, you can think whatever is soothing to your sanity, replied Feng Heng with a humble and polite smile. He looked in the distance. It's almost time. Spirit Genesis sect. Patriarch. He waited patiently while tapping his right foot. What is taking so long? Sorry, Patriarch, the seal has also affected the mirror, so it's taking longer to activate, replied one of the sect's elders. We cannot wait any longer. Then what do you want us to do? Use a sacrifice. Is this really necessary? We only need to wait a while? Asked Patriarch Jia. This is not the time for hesitation. Each passing second means a new variable. According to their plan, the ancestor should have dealt with the situation by now, or at least give him an update. But a few minutes had passed and there was no news. This could only mean something unexpected had occurred. Very well. The elders sent the orders and someone executed them. In a secret dimension of the sect stood a bronze mirror. In the back was an engraving of the divine beasts of vermilion bird, black tortoise, white tiger and azure dragon, each positioned in the correct cardinal directions of south, north, west and east. There were cracks on the side of the mirror, and it was surrounded by countless runes. A person walked into the room carrying 3 others in chains and tattered clothes. The man carrying the prisoners did not waste time as he immediately recited a spell. Following this, the 3 prisoners had their blood drained by the mirror. They tried to resist, but it was futile. The mirror seemed greedy and absorbed their flesh, blood, soul and inner worlds before releasing a terrifying aura. Finally, it released a brilliant light that directly attacked the seal. Buddha world. Feng Heng suddenly paused as a voice entered his mind. Then, without hesitation, he attacked Ancestor He with all his strength. He borrowed the strength of the Buddha world, giving him a blessing of 2% Grandao source. Central region. Su Shi received the same message. Afterward, she did something surprising. She allowed He Shi's attack to hit her. Her body exploded into countless particles and she never appeared again. Run away. Damn it, roared He Shi, who swore this was far from over. Then, his face turned ugly as he saw a colossal hand descending from the sky. He felt powerless before that hand. Immediately He Shi knew the people behind this attack. There has only been one thing he felt this powerless. It was when he invaded the Myriad Emperor world's cleanup. That young man did a random punch and almost killed him. His body trembled, but he stimulated his pain receptors, using pain to combat the fear. No, I cannot die yet. Luck was in He Shi's favor, or Wang Wei's attack was never him in the first place. The hand directly confronted the beam of light released by the mirror, and they were in a stalemate for a while. The world should have been in absolute darkness due to the lack of the sun, but the confrontation of these two illuminated everything. Impossible. How could he be so powerful? Alas, no one paid attention to him, let alone responded. Wang Wei's hand confronted the beam of light for a few seconds before dispersing. A few seconds later, the beam of light disappeared, making He Shi sigh in relief. Unfortunately, his happiness was too soon. The same hand appeared again and its target seemed to be different. The Spirit Genesis sect's Chi Lux dragon manifested, illuminating the world with his multicolored body. The big hand targeted a crown on the dragon's head with the character 4, strongest. No, roared He Shi, and the dragon felt his emotion. It tried to resist, but it was futile. Activate the mirror again, ordered He Shi, but his orders were useless. True heavenly Tao was lenient against their sect, but there was a limit. The previous confrontation was already too much, so how could it allow them to activate the broken Empyrean artifact again and to such a level? Therefore Wang Wei easily stripped the title of the strongest sect from the Spirit Genesis sect. Myriad Emperor World, Tao Opening Sect. Wang Wei gazed at his hand, which was bleeding profusely. Why are you injured? Said Yu Yen with a slightly open mouth. Indeed. Can someone injure you? It's an artifact, he replied calmly. Are you okay? Better than ever, he said with a brilliant smile. Invincible was indeed lonely, hence why he was looking forward to his battle with Old Man Nether. Now that he was injured, he was happy, knowing the lower dimension still had many unknown variables he did not know. Why aren't you healing? She asked. I don't know, but it seems higher tiers have a natural ability similar to Dao Will when confronting lower tiers, analyzed Wang Wei. He now knew that regular Empyreans could easily injure and kill even Eternals, even without Dao Will. What should we do? Do you want to contact Elder Dan? No need, replied Wang Wei as he cut off the injured hand and regrew one. He could feel it was still weak and would require some time to heal perfectly, but it was better than before. Anyway, everything was worth it, said Wang Wei as a crown appeared on his hand. This is. From now on, our sect is the strongest faction in the lower dimension. He waved his hand and the crown fused with the sect's chi luck. If Wang Wei did not hide it, terrifying visions would be visible to the entire world. However, unlike the Spirit Genesis sect, he wanted to be more low-key. Regardless of his intentions, the insurgents and immortals of the sect detected the change in chi luck, and they were all surprised after learning the truth. Meanwhile, Wang Wei waited for someone. Luckily, he did not have to wait for long. Soon afterward, Wang Ju appeared before him, kneeling on one knee with something in her hand. Wang Wei glanced at the head, who looked shocked, confused and horrified, and asked, Your mission succeeded? Yes. The assassination was successful. Did you encounter any problem? None at all. Wang Wei nodded. After killing the injured immortal sovereign of the Spirit Genesis sect, their sect's foundation was further weakened. "947 mission over accomplished." Wang Wei took the head, looking at the middle-aged man. He could be described as extremely handsome, probably a lattice man. However, with his current state, none of that mattered. Wang Wei pointed to the head's forehead, manifesting a dark gray complex runes. Curse of Fate. He used Ancestor Jia's head and his connection to the Spirit Genesis sect to place a terrifying curse on their members. Wang Wei was extremely careful not to alert everybody else, especially their potent artifact. Luckily, the sect was still in a state of chaos, and the artifact was in a semi-recovering state, making it the perfect time to cast this curse. This should be enough preparation, he thought. Is there anything else you want to report? Asked Wang Wei. Yes, nodded Wang Ju. Although I was limited by time, I acquired some valuable information and also hurt their sect's foundation. What do tell? Wang Wei only tasked her with the assassination. He knew the danger. Therefore he did not want her to take the risk. I learned they have two ultimate trump cards besides the artifact, the protecting Dao talismans and the weapon slaves. One of their immortal sovereigns used the talisman to break through the seal. Wang Wei remembered the power that broke his seal, which was different from the artifact he had just confronted. The weapon slave? I only heard the name but no information, but we can deduce some information based on the name. True. Weapon salve, slave to a weapon. What weapon could anyone or anything from the Spirit Genesis sect be? Of course, it's their broken Empyrean artifact. The concept of weapon slave exists in the myriad Emperor world, mostly in sword Dao factions or weapon refining lineages. Some weapons are too powerful or have too much negative or baleful aura, demonizing them. If their users cannot properly control these weapons, the weapon will consume their souls, turning them into mindless creatures controlled by their whim, in other words, weapon slaves. Many sword factions will purposely cultivate sword slaves to use people's souls to nourish the spirituality of unique weapons in their faction, ensuring the sword intent, sword will, or Dao rhymes of these weapons do not dissipate after countless years. With this knowledge, Wang Wei and Wang Ju could deduce the Spirit Genesis sect cultivated unique weapon slaves using their artifact. They infused the Empyrean power in the sect in a person, drastically increasing their opponents. Such a person must have terrifying strength, probably close to Wang Wei's. However, they will never make any advancement in their cultivation and must remain hidden to prevent from being liquidated by true heavenly Dao. Furthermore, their lives are now tied to that artifact, meaning they would cease to exist if something were to happen to it. What else did you do? Asked Wang Wei. I used divination to find the place with the most concentrated luck of their sect and discovered a unique medicine field of their sect, full of emperor medicines, and they seem to have been cultivated using the artifact. Did you bring it? Asked Wang Wei with shining lights. No, I destroyed it, said Wang Ju before quickly explaining. I had little time, and powerful formations and dozens of insurgents protected the field. In a hurry, I had to explore the entire thing. Relax, I don't blame you, reassured Wang Wei. Although he felt it was a pity, it could not be helped, given the situation. I'm just glad you're okay and the enemy suffered, said Wang Wei with a brilliant smile. You did an excellent job this time, even exceeding my expectations. There will be plenty of rewards for you later. However, the Fate Shadow Guard still need you to oversee everything. It's my honor to serve the young master, bowed Wang Ju before disappearing. Wang Wei was in an excellent mood, so his smile did not disappear. He looked in the distance where Feng Heng and Su Shi waited for him. He sent a projection. Thank you for your hard work, said Wang Wei. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, this poor monk could not kill the immortal sovereign. Oh, what happened to him? He exploded his body to open a tear in my Buddha world and escape. However, I did injure his soul while he was running away. In that case, it's fine, your reward is still the same. Wang Wei chose to be generous. After this battle, Ancestor, he is basically crippled. The essence of immortal sovereigns is still tier 11 despite their tier 10 strength. As such, only resources of the same level can heal him. But where does the lower dimension have any tier 11 spiritual herbs or medicine? His only choice is to use Emperor herbs, but the vast difference between tier 10 and tier 11 makes it extremely difficult to use lower tier resources to heal. The effect of using Emperor herbs or pills to heal would be the same as a quasi-emperor using profound tier resources to heal himself. Before Wang Ju destroyed the medical field, Ancestor, he might have had a chance. After all, the Spirit Genesis sect was probably using that medicinal field to grow top-tier Emperor medicine using the power of the broken Empyrean artifact. But now it was destroyed. Feng Heng felt relieved after hearing this. Wang Wei looked at Su Shi and said, "You did an excellent job." He then sighed, "Fellow Taoist, I have to say, from ancient to modern times, you're truly a talented emperor." After seeing that battle, seeing her application of the Tao will and her source technique, Wang Wei had a newfound admiration for her talent. Many people might believe her achievement was the result of Lin Fan's talent, but he understood that even Lin Fan was not guaranteed to achieve what she did. In the end, talent only means potential. How to turn potential into strength was something entirely different. In Wang Wei's opinion, Su Shi made full use of Lin Fan's talent, even pushing beyond its limits. "Thank you, Your Majesty," said Su Shi with an ethereal smile. Typically, she would not care about such a comment. However, it was different coming from someone like the Heavenly Emperor. That was true recognition from an unparalleled genius and pinnacle powerhouse. Wang Wei nodded. He knew Su Shi had not reached his full potential. Furthermore, after ascending to the upper dimension, she might become even more accomplished if she is brave enough to recast her foundation. Maybe she will be useful in the future after ascending. Your reward will come after the third court meeting. So be patient for a while. In that case, this poor monk will leave, said Feng Heng. After experiencing the battle and hearing the Heavenly Emperor's words, he wanted to return to his sect and cultivate. Feng Heng had his own arrogance after surviving this terrifying generation, so he refused to be the weakest eternal emperor. His first order of business after returning will be to create his own unique source technique. Su Shi bowed before also leaving. She would not let the Heavenly Emperor's words in this battle get to her head. The path of the Emperor was long, and her journey had just started. Wang Wei calmly watched them leave before looking in the distance. His objectives were both accomplished and unfulfilled. The missing link was actually He Shi, whom he felt was not pushed to his limit or as simple as he seems. The reason for his conclusion is Wang Wei had a feeling the latter would have survived had he directly targeted him instead of that artifact. However, he could not fathom how such a thing was possible. Could there be some unknown secret on He Shi? Or is he secretly being protected by someone else like Emperor Jia? Wang Wei frowned. He is protected, why? Why is he important to Emperor Jia? More importantly, what is this old monster planning and how strong is he now? He had so many questions but no one to answer his doubts. So he can only find them himself. Wang Wei sighed, entering a relaxed state. There is no need to worry since I'm already prepared. He cast that curse to prepare for the eventual clash with He Shi and Emperor Jia behind him. When the right time, he can also have a backhand that allows him to retreat in case things get out of control. Wang Wei smiled before the projection disappeared. He knew his stay in the lower dimension would not be boring now that he had opponents like Old Man Nether, Death Reverence and the corpse-selling sect, the Abyss Gap, and now the mysterious Emperor Jia. One of the reasons he has his achievements today is because he had someone like Tion pushing him to be better than he thought he could. Maybe these people will also bring out more hidden potential while in the Emperor realm. So Wang Wei was looking forward to it. Back at home, Wang Wei sensed something and looked in one direction. Ancestor Wuching is coming out of his retreat soon? Let's have a drink with that old man. 948 Heaven and Earth Celebration Battle Spirit World. He floated above the heaven, his body shivering with fear, anger, and hatred. The void around trembled due to his agitated emotions. However, he knew this was not the time to be depressed. He looked at the devastation around him and began the repair process. He used his powerful soul to close all the tears in space in the central regions. There were millions of them, so it took him a while to close them and stabilize the space. In the process, he also removed Su Shi's remaining chaos flames and aura. The next step in the repair was the chaotic spiritual qi. If not fixed, it will be impossible for people to absorb it and cultivate, so he had to use his tyrannical soul to soothe the spiritual qi, ensuring it returned to the level before this disaster. With these two tasks done, the repairs were halfway done. He raised his head and looked at the place the sun used to be. His hand penetrated his chest and ripped out his heart. Today the world suffered a catastrophe, said he, his voice reverberating through the entire world. I feel compassion for all sentient beings, so I will use my heart, the essence of flame and yang, to cast the sun and nurture the world. After saying these words, He's heart steadily floated above the sky where the sun used to be. Then it released an intense supreme yang power, which in turn rapidly condensed into a sun. Eastern region, damn he cursed the Purple Spirit King. He understood why the latter was doing all of this. The first reason was to save the world and receive merit, and the second was to save the reputation of their sect. From now on, it will forever be recorded in the annals of history that the sun was created by the battle god Emperor, saving all sentient beings. Heavenly Tao will reward the Spirit Genesis sect with destiny and protection for their great contribution. The Purple Spirit King felt aggrieved. He had just weakened his greatest nemesis, but immediately afterward, the latter found a way to make up for some of his loss. The worst part is there was nothing he could do to stop it. No matter how weakened the Spirit Genesis sect is, they will always be the most powerful faction of this world as long as they have that artifact. Now, he had a reason to prevent He from attacking their sects, but if he tried to stop the latter, the Spirit Genesis sect would not hesitate to attack them and plunder their resources to make up for their loss. No, I need to do something. He rushed to contact the others, instigating another World Council. Central Region. He watched his finished work, but things were not finished. Next he dug out his spleen. I will use my spleen as the source of earth elements to nourish the soil and regrow the destroyed mountains, forests, and spiritual veins. The organs in his hand disappeared and the world magically changed. The destroyed soils regenerated, mountains grew from the ground, becoming taller than they ever were, forests instantly grew from the ground, and more importantly, the destroyed spiritual veins on the ground reconnected and regrew, turning the central region into a paradise for cultivators, even more than it used to be. I will use my blood to revive all the lives lost in this disaster, continued He, his voice echoing between heaven and earth. He used a spell that requires a sacrifice, which is his blood. His purpose is to revive all the people who died in this battle, and as an emperor, one drop of his blood is worth all those trillion upon trillion of people, including cultivators. He watched countless people appear in the central region, but he was not happy. The population was too small, especially the mortal population. After a moment of contemplation, he knew the reason. Great emperors and mortals are different dimensional species, so when the latter kills the former, they passively erase the existence of mortals. So, these people who died cannot be revived unless he used existence reconstruction on all of them. I need to replenish the mortal population as soon as possible. I will send someone to get them from the lower realm, thought He. As for the cultivators who died, he knew he had to suffer this loss. The Spirit Genesis sect surrounded itself with allies and people who were obedient to their rules. As such, all their political allies gathered in the central region, resulting in 99% of them dying in this catastrophe. Su Shi made sure that none of these emperor lineages would survive even under the protection of their emperor arrays and artifacts. He exhaled calmly. Previously his plan only reached this far. However, he realized this was an opportunity to stabilize the chi luck of the sect. So he decided to continue. Anyway, his sacrifice was minimal to him. As long as he does not let Su Shi's Tao will spread, it won't take him long to regrow these organs. I will use my liver, the source wood elements, to replenish the flora of heaven and earth. His booming voice appeared in the ears of every living creature like the whisper of an intimate friend. Afterward, many spiritual medicines or herbs destroyed in the previous battle regrow. They ranged from the lowest rank to the quasi-emperor tier. I will use my lung, the source of metal elements, to make up for the lost ores and metals between heaven and earth. Countless spiritual ores veins or mines grew all across the central region, replenishing the loss to the world. I will use my kidney, the source of all water elements, to nourish everything between heaven and earth. Water is often called the source of life that can nourish all things. So, with He Shi's actions, the entire central region underwent a baptism, nourishing all the newly revived creatures, nourishing the soil, the trees, the mountains, and even the veins underneath the earth. I will use my left as the source of the most Een to remove the resentment from this calamity. Without hesitation, He Shi dug out his left eye and sacrificed it. Too many people died in the battle, making the resentment almost substantial. If not dealt with properly, it could fuse with the spiritual qi between heaven and earth, making it easier for cultivators to be devilized and lose their minds, turning into mindless agents of slaughter. He Shi raised his right hand to his back, pulling out something, his spine. Finally, I will use my spine to support heaven and earth. From now on, even quasi-emperors cannot break the void during battle. The whole world trembled for a moment as the space was reinforced to an unimaginable level. From now on, an eternal emperor's spine will be the source of power in the battle spirit world space, changing the world for the better. As soon as he finished, the sky changed as countless visions manifested. Then, a voice echoed throughout the entire world, "Thank you to the great emperor for saving all sentient beings and achieving great merit." All the mortals of the battle spirit world seemed to have this single thought embedded into their minds by heaven and earth, so they knelt on the ground and kowtowed while chanting these words repeatedly. The power of incense? Thought He Shi, who did not expect to have such a benefit. With such quantity, his cultivation should take a small step forward. I guess my actions were worth it, he thought as he looked at the sky. After the visions ended, a glowing purple orb descended from heaven to his hand. Heavenly Tao rewarded him with purple merit for his contribution. He was excited but controlled his emotions. He still needed to check whether he accomplished his main objective. So he checked the Sex Chi Luck Dragon without hesitation. He saw the previously proud dragon had lost countless scales, and its body was bleeding. However, its aura was no longer as majestic and mighty as it used to be. Luckily, a new power manifested out of nowhere and healed a few of the wounds. Furthermore, the continuous declining aura had drastically reduced its speed. This is enough for now to stabilize the situation. Now it's time for the next step. He Shi disappeared, returning to the sect. Myriad Emperor World. Wang Wei, who was drinking alone, sighed. This He Shi is truly not simple. In such a short time he came up with such a method to stabilize the sect's luck. No talent who can prove the Tao is simple. Even if they were, the process slowly rises to the top, and trampling on others will change anyone. Furthermore, anyone who has witnessed the very source or origin of the Tao will never see the world in a simple manner. In other words, any great emperor is destined to be extraordinary from other cultivators. So far you've caught my attention. Then, let's see if you'll become a worthy adversary, muttered before continuing to drink. Without Li Jun to accompany him to drink, he felt lonely. Luckily, he only had to wait a few days for ancestor Wuqing to have a drinking buddy. (949) Ruthlessness. He Shi sat on a throne, the room turning completely red due to his anger and killing intent. The situation seemed aggravated because he had no shirt, a gushing wound on his torso, and was missing one eye. The elders, disciples, and even his own father trembled because of his terrifying aura. Ancestor He's soul became slighter and weaker as he resisted the pressure from the latter's aura in such a terrible state. In this atmosphere, no one dared say anything, especially since they knew their mistake. The sect master found a way to stabilize the chi luck of the sect, but after returning he learned that they had lost two of their greatest foundations. He Shi was truly outraged. He thought the situation did not get any worse than losing their strongest sect title, but he was wrong. They lost an immortal sovereign, the other was crippled, and finally they lost their most precious medicine garden. That garden has been with the sect for billions of years, and it was extremely arduous to cultivate. It's not a simple thing to mobilize the power from the four-symbol mirror, and once they succeed, it's usually a very tiny portion. However, the medicine grown in that garden contained the purest and most potent power from the mirror. The sect only has 2 immortal sovereigns, but that's only because of the balance mechanism of true heavenly Tao. As long as they want, they can use the resources in that garden to train countless immortal sovereigns. Now it is all gone. Years of effort, planning, and biding their time wasted in one instant. He looked at all these people and all he could think about was how incompetent they were. If they were not members of his sect and his family, he would have slaughtered them all. He took a deep breath to calm down. Now was not the time for agitated emotions or even holding people accountable. He needed to deal with the situation as soon as possible. Otherwise the sect will suffer even more. He calmed down and entered a state of deep focus, analyzing the situation and planning his next step. That bastard Wang Wei is ruthless. He did all these to weaken the sect and have justification to take our title. He knew the title could not be taken simply because someone desired it. They must meet certain conditions. Given how easily he took it, it meant not only was our sect drastically weakened, but the Tao opening sect must have improved exponentially. However, how could they become so powerful? According to their sect's understanding of the Tao opening sect, they were a top faction in the lower dimension. However, it did not change the fact they have been weakened over the years because of the 9 Emperor curse and due to their isolation from other world communities. At best, they would be in the top 100 factions of the lower dimension, so how could they get their hands on the title of the strongest sect? Can one eternal emperor make such a difference? Even if his strength is overwhelming, it takes time to set up the foundation of a sect. One powerful emperor is not enough to make the Tao opening sect's ranking jump so high. After all, Wang Wei had just proved the Tao not long ago, and he will eventually leave. So, what has he done to increase their sect's foundation to such a level in such a short period? He knew the source of this problem was this answer. He needed to find this information. However, after the failure of that assassin, he knew he had to be extra careful. He finally focused on the crowd, looking at them with his only eye. He removed his aura, allowing them to breath. There are a few things we need to do. Firstly, send someone to replenish the mortal population. We can also win over the top factions in the greater Thousand World and move them here. They will be our new allies from now on. Secondly, the sect cannot be without any immortal sovereign, so we need one as soon as possible. The room became quiet, with everyone looking at each other, but no one spoke. If you have something to say, do it and don't waste my time. People hesitated for a while. Patriarch Jia looked at Patriarch He, hoping he would be the one who spoke. After all, it was his son. However, the latter pretended he did not see anything. In the end, Patriarch Jia secretly gritted his teeth and said, "Sect Master, the second objective is obvious to all, but how to accomplish it? We lost our supreme garden, so it's not easy to cultivate another immortal sovereign." "I'm aware of this," replied He calmly. "In this situation we need to use drastic measures. Send a weapon slave to capture a few immortal sovereigns and we will control their souls." Everyone frowned as they pondered the feasibility of this method. Immortal sovereigns are tier 11, so it's impossible to control their soul or even their bodies. However, if they used the 4-symbol mirror, which is of the same level and even higher essence, it's possible to enslave their soul. "That might work," said the disciplinary head. "However, the weapon slaves need to act fast. Their sect had just activated the mirror to the highest level in a long time, so true heavenly Tao should be keeping close eyes on them, so deploying the weapon slaves is risky. We only need to fight the right target and their location and act swiftly," said He. "Their sect's intelligence department has spread far and wide in the lower dimension, so it should be easy to find a few loose immortal sovereigns. Although rare, they do exist, and in the worst-case scenario, kidnap the ones from certain factions." "How about using the people from other regions?" suggested an elder. "Yes, these people purposely ignored us during this catastrophe. We should use this excuse to weaken them." "I agree. Even if we don't use their immortal sovereigns, we must attack some of them and plunder their resources to make up for our loss." Most people agreed with this idea. However, He shook his head. They did not have a legitimate reason to attack these sects since they also were attacked. Although he sensed there were some hidden secrets from this, he did not have any evidence. Normally, their sect does not need a reason to attack others or even blackmail some resources from them. However, the situation was precarious, so it was not wise to act in an overbearing manner. Otherwise, these factions might band together and attack the Spirit Genesis sect. Of course, this was not the main reason he disagreed with this method. The main reason is he sensed 15 immortal sovereigns standing together in the distance. He knew this was a warning from the other factions, telling him not to mess around during this time. Since the sect master made a decision, they could only accept it. Take care of the dead disciples, ensure they are properly buried and compensate their family. Began reconstruction of the sect. I don't think you need my help to do these things, said he. No problem. In that case you're dismissed. Sect master, wait, said Patriarch Jia. What about the Tao opening sect? Are we just going to swallow this breath? Of course not, replied he with a deep killing intent. However, now is not the time to fight with them. He understood what kind of person Wang Wei was. His personality dictated he refused to suffer a loss. The first time they attacked him and the myriad emperor world was during their cleanup. However, Wang Wei killed countless heaven chosens, creating much hatred for the Spirit Genesis sect. Although few people knew they were behind the entire event, some did, and they did appreciate losing their talented disciples. As a result, they lost many business partners in the commercial hub. The second attack was the attack on their people on the commercial hub. The latter also violently retaliated. Finally, he recently sent a pseudo-eternal emperor assassin to test things out, but Wang Wei returned the favor by sending 2 eternal emperors. After thinking of this, he felt his anger returning, so he quickly exhaled. Everyone beside the ancestor can leave, he declared, and soon, only 2 people remained in the room. Sect master, I'm truly sorry about my incompetence. I don't blame. Who would have thought their world had more than one eternal? How do you think they did it? There are 2 ways they could succeed, said Ancestor He. The first one is to refine the 9 devil god world, allowing their world to condense more than one heaven will. The second is merit. Merit? Yes. Buddhism's annihilation was a mistake, so true heavenly Tao owed them great karma. So, if someone could gather the destiny of Buddhism, break the absolute beginning magic and revive Buddhism, it's not impossible to use merit to condense another heaven will. I see, nodded he. Unfortunately, either of these methods were not easily replicated. He did not think it would be simple to refine a heaven will with all these factions trying to protect the world. As for merit, that's even harder to amass, even if he tried to plunder from many factions across different world communities. Alright, you can leave. You don't have to worry about your injury. I will find a way to. His words did not finish as countless runes appeared in the room, making Ancestor He's face change. "950 Farewell, Sect Master, what is the meaning of this?" Although a powerful formation surrounded him, Ancestor He calmed down and analyzed the situation. He knew panic would not help, so there was no point in letting such an emotion rule his thoughts and actions. "There is only way for me and the sect to have a chance to fight a monster like Wang Wei," said he calmly. Ancestor suddenly thought of something and his face became ugly. "You want to refine me as the mirror's spirit?" "Exactly. Only a tier 11 soul can become its main spirit, thus healing some of its damage. Afterward, it will be easier for me to control this powerful artifact." Ancestor He's face was ugly to look at. The idea of refining a weapon spirit for the 4-symbol mirror existed for a long time, but he always opposed the idea. "Why don't you use one of your captured immortal sovereigns?" "You know why," replied he and Ancestor He felt despair. He hoped the latter did not know that information, but he was wrong. For countless generations, he and Jia clan secretly nourished the mirror with their blood, creating a bloodline linked to it. Their attempt was to find a better way to control it, but also as a backup against the sectarian faction. As such, only someone with the He and Jia bloodline can sacrifice themselves and become the spirit. Ancestor He suddenly laughed maniacally as a look of understanding dawned on him. "I see. I always suspected why old Jia's injury never healed despite the sect's ability, but now I understand. You people have been planning this for a long time." Now that he thought of it, he realized the sect used too many excuses not to heal old Jia. He only had mild suspicions, but there were no obvious signs, no matter how he searched, therefore he did not pay too much attention to this. He regretted his actions. "My original intention was to convince Ancestor Jia. He cared more about the sect's well-being and was willing to sacrifice. Furthermore, you are from my clan, so I wanted to spare you. Sadly, the plan cannot keep up," explained he, his demeanor extremely calm compared to his previous rage and anger. "I am your teacher. Don't you feel any guilt? You taught me to do whatever is necessary to protect the sect and ensure it thrives. I'm only doing things according to your teaching. No, you're doing it for your own selfish motive, replied Ancestor He with a sneer. A part of me is, nodded He, surprising Ancestor He for his frankness. I have suffered too much at Wang Wei's hands, and I can feel he might become my heart demon if things continue. Ancestor He was once again surprised. Anyone who can become an eternal emperor has the best Tao heart amongst an entire generation, not to mention an eternal supreme like He. And yet, he showed signs of developing a heart demon, which is a shocking thing. Do you think using a foreign thing like a weapon can make you on par with him? Ancestor He did not hide his sneer and contempt. Alas, the response he received was still this overwhelming calmness. I walk the way of battle. Anything that can be used to win and defeat the enemy is also a part of my strength, replied the battle god emperor with the utmost confidence. Furthermore, as long as I can kill him or delay his revival, I'm confident I can surpass his current strength. Ancestor He quieted down for a moment, accepting his fate. He then looked at his student in his eyes. You did the right thing. In this situation, this is the best solution for the sect. He knew if he were in the latter's shoes, he would have made the same choice. I'm proud of you, said Ancestor He. He knew only with such a ruthless leader would the sect have an opportunity to survive the calamity that is called Wang Wei. Although he has his selfishness, his core philosophy, and ideologies are to ensure the sect continues on its legacy and thrives. A ray of softness flashed in He's eyes before disappearing. Do you have any last words or wishes? Make sure the sect survives, said Ancestor He with the utmost solemnity. I will, replied He firmly. He waved his hand, and the runes in the room turned into a seed, leaving only him in the empty and desolate room. He stood in absolute silence for the next 3 hours before standing up. He disappeared, heading to Alchemy Supreme Elder. Not long after proving the Tao, he tasked the Supreme Elder to use the best material from the garden to concoct the God-nourishing pill for him, which has the same effect as the Emperor's Soul Pill. In other words, these materials are the last ones in existence from the garden. He plans to use one of the pills to nourish Ancestor He's soul to ensure he is strong enough for the fusion with the mirror. Myriad Emperor World, Tao Opening Sect. A few days passed and Ancestor Wuxia exited his retreat. Wang Wei waited for him with a small table full of delicious snacks and great wine. Ancestor, how was your retreat? Asked Wang Wei as he poured wine for the latter. Wuxia took a sip and his eyes shone. He could feel the strength of his soul increase slightly. Great wine, he commented. He could tell this thing was nourished by the Grand Tao Source and fermented for millions of years. It was great, he replied. I finally officially reached the realm of first class. Furthermore, I can feel this is not my limit as I am full of potential. Wang Wei nodded as he was not surprised by this outcome. His bloodline has just been activated, so people still need time to grow and develop. However, the main objective of the bloodline is to increase potential. Wuxia chugged the wine like he was drinking water, making Wang Wei speechless. Kid, I have always said you were the gift that kept giving. Some of these old guys didn't believe in you at first. He snorted in disdain. Is it because of the outlaw trial? Yes, they thought you wouldn't survive. Many people felt it was a pity for a person of your talent to die young, so they wanted to intervene and tell you the truth so you could give up. Unfortunately, the rule of our sect is that we have to train genius with the utmost cruelty. If you died, it could only mean that's how far your destiny can take you. Wuxia exhaled deeply, playing with his tongue as he savored the taste of the wine. However, I always believed in you. The moment you were born and I sensed how scary your soul was, I knew there was something special about you. Wang Wei drank while listening. I'm glad you believed in me. If not for you, I will not survive to this day. Wuxia shook his head. He knew even without his actions, the sect master would not die with his wife present. I know what you're thinking, but I know the situation would have been worse had you not bought me enough time for her to arrive and to make a plan. So I owe you a life. Well, as long as you can continue the glory of the sect and give me a few more wines, that will be more than enough for me, said Wuxia. Their generation has one mission in life: ensure the Tao Opening Sect continues its legacy and thrive. So, if sacrificing their lives would result in these things being accomplished, he knew many of these old guys would make the same decision as him. No problem, nodded Wang Wei. And Wuxia continued to drink and eat. A few minutes he sighed and said, let's get to business. A few of these guys were scared and wanted me to ask you if it was possible for some of them to ascend. Ascension is a touchy subject in any faction. Losing any immortal cultivator or insurgent is a great weakening for any lineage. Furthermore, the events that occurred during the Great Zhou dynasty rang alarms in the minds of many emperor lineages, making this topic even more taboo. As such, Wang Wei understood why these people asked Wuqing, who had a good relationship with him, to ask him. Even if you didn't bring this topic up, I would have, said Wang Wei. With the new bloodline, our sect will have no problem cultivating immortals and insurgents, even eternal grade ones. As time passes, we will have too much power. I had already decided that many of you will need to seal yourself and hide from the world or ascend to the upper dimension. Wuqing frowned after hearing this, not showing any joy at this news. Is the balance mechanism this bad? It's not now, but it will be in the future, responded Wang Wei. The fiend god bloodline is too strong and should not exist in the lower dimension. Wuqing sighed. I will bring the news to them. He was not happy with this information. If it were up to him, the sect should rule the entire lower dimension for all eternity. However, he knew this was impossible, at least not yet. (9:51) Their turn. Now that this situation has been settled, Wang Wuqing decided to change the topic. Have you thought who will be responsible for breaking the 12 Emperor curse? He had absolute confidence that Wang Tian would win the next Heavenbreaker battle. In his long life, Wuqing has experienced countless geniuses of the sect, and Wang Tian's talent was one of the few individuals who reached the level of the founders. Sadly, he suffered the same fate as the others. His luck and destiny were too weak. Luckily, Wang Tian gave birth to a monster of a son, thus changing his destiny and luck. Without these two as a barrier in his cultivation journey, his accomplishments would not be lower than the ancestors. Do you want either Kai Song or Jin Mengyao to be the 12th and 13th emperor? Or do you want to use one of the sleeping geniuses of our sect? With the new bloodline, they now have the talent and destiny to compete for these positions. What do you think? Asked Wang Wei, sipping his wine. The 12th emperor does not matter, but the 13th must be unparalleled in strength if they want to break the curse. Honestly, the best option is to wait for your father and have him be the 13th. Wang Wei agreed with this idea. Unfortunately, due to his mother's situation and other factors, his factor cannot wait for so long. If I were to choose between these two, I think Kai Song is the best for the 13th, continued Wuqing. However, personally, I would recommend Li Wenling. Oh, who is that? He's a heaven chosen from the Middle Emperor era, explained Wuqing. He cultivated Time Dao, even creating his own acquired physique. He passed the outlaw trial? Yes, nodded Wuqing before sighing. Did something happen? His trial led him to the Chrono-Chaos realm. We tried to get him but to no avail. Although his soul jade indicated he was alive, we thought he was dead or in a state between life and death. However, he eventually walked out of that forbidden place. But? Asked Wang Wei, knowing there were more. By the time he returned, it was too late. The Heavenbreaker battle had already ended and he missed it. That's unfortunate. Indeed. Li Wenling's talent was indeed monstrous, and the fact he passed the trial is also an indication of his ability. Alas. Wuqing sighed. Did he say what was inside that place? He refused to say anything on the subject after returning. We didn't press him and he sealed himself soon afterward. Wang Wei nodded. He did not expect the sect to have such a talent sealed. So what do you think? I have someone in mind for the 13th emperor. However, there are some things to fix first before making a decision. If things don't work out, I will meet Li Wenling to see if he can take on this task. Wuqing nodded and they continued to drink and chat. A few hours later, Wang Wei returned home, but his parents were either asleep or cultivating. Wang Wei looked at the stars, thinking deeply. The next meeting of the court is still a few hundred years away. Before then, I need to act. So, what should my next task be? He contemplated deeply. It's about time I see her, but before then, I should deal with these forbidden lands. No, my first priority should be the environment. After making a clear plan, Wang Wei decided to act starting tomorrow. Today he wanted to sleep like a mortal. He turned around to walk to his bed but suddenly stopped. He felt a sensation in his blood. Has she succeeded? So fast? He closed his eyes and felt his body. As expected, he felt some change in his bloodline. Wang Wei looked in the distance and noticed the members of the Li and Yen clan began to have drastic changes, while the Wang clan members had mild changes. Wang Wei and the sect had already prepared for this occasion, so no one panicked and did as they planned. Meanwhile, Wang Wei only needed to supervise things. Suddenly, he sensed a call from his bloodline, and he immediately entered his bloodline source. Ancestor, He saluted. Have the changes begun? Asked the Sword Empress directly. Yes. It's good that there is no issue, she nodded with a smile. Okay, I'm leaving. I only wanted to check if there were any problems. She looked at him kindly. Kid, I don't know what you're doing to make our sect's luck so prosperous, but keep doing it. Are my actions helpful to your situation? Could it be that the ancestors can revive with the luck I bring to the sect? Analyzed Wang Wei. She glanced at him. Talking with these Tao overlords is something tiring. You're right. I have gathered enough luck to revive the first brother, and soon I can revive the second brother. If you continue to develop like this, I might revive everybody. Don't you have things up there to revive them? I do, but I don't dare return to the sect, replied the Sword Empress with a sigh. Even mobilizing the sect's luck has to be done with the utmost prudence. Every time she thinks about how she is forced to run away from these weak rats, hiding away from her own him, she almost vomits blood in anger. Unfortunately, that's how the current situation is. Wang Wei understood the ancestors' plight. Although Mithria is on her side, the latter is still balanced out by supreme unity. In the current weakened state of the ancestor, these parasites are more than enough to do damage to her or the current Tao opening sect. I understand, nodded Wang Wei. Well, I'm leaving. Hold on, I have a few quick questions. All right, but we don't have long. Wang Wei first told her about supreme unity interfering with the lower dimension. Mithria warned me about this, and she also said she would take a closer watch on him. That's fine. Wang Wei did not want one of these big guys coming to his realm and interfering with his plan. The second thing is about the taboo battle realm you previously mentioned. Can you tell me more? Is it one of the 13 taboos? No, the name has no relationship with the 13 taboos. It's just a name, replied the Sword Empress. In some chaos worlds it's called the ultimate battle realm, the limit battle realm, and some just called it the 11-fold battle realm. As for more knowledge on it? It's simple. As long as you can fight Empyreans with only a cultivation of 20% Grand Tao Source, you've reached the taboo battle realm. However, achieving such a feat is more difficult than anyone could imagine, especially since there is a bottleneck between the Great Emperor and the Empyrean realm. Bottleneck? Yes, and it's the kind that even someone like me spent years trying to reach 70% Grand Tao Source, she explained. Back then, we did not have the foundation we have now, so we could not access the rare cultivation resources that can help with that bottleneck. I see. I don't know about the taboo battle realm, so I can't help you much. I can give you a direction, but I don't know if it will work. What do you mean? According to my research back then, I only found 2 people who succeeded, and they had one thing in common. They had a unique Tao body and awakening. What does that mean? I don't know, but that's the information I gathered, so I also tried to improve my Tao body, but I failed. I see, thanks for the tip. Sword Empress nodded. Anything else? Yes, do you have a pill recipe that would allow an emperor to have the battle prowess of an Empyrean temporarily? Huh. I do, but you won't find the materials for this thing in the lower dimension, so such a thing should be useless to you. It doesn't matter since I need it for something else. That's fine, I guess, she said before waving her hand, sending a message to his mind directly from their bloodline connection. Is there anything else? No, send my regards to her for me and don't forget what you promised me. What a cheeky kid, said Sword Empress with a smile. The more she got to know this kid, the more she liked him. Don't worry, I won't, she uttered before disappearing. Wang Wei opened his eyes and took a moment to check the information in his mind. His gaze then shifted to the sect, focusing on Li Jun and Yan Liling who were in retreat. A terrifying battle intent emanated from Li Jun's body. Meanwhile, Yan Liling exuded a power that seemed to contain everything, that seemed to be the source of all things. However, her aura soon changed to that of flame, wood and intense spiritual power. The origin bloodline seemed more adaptable and malleable than my void bloodline, analyzed Wang Wei. He did not dwell on this for long as his body also underwent subtle changes because of the connection between the 3 clans. His strength even increased by 1 infant fiend god force, reaching 75. (952) innate environment. The Li and Yan clan were in a state of euphoria that lasted way too long. Wang Wei understood their thinking. He promised them he would have their bloodline, but some time has passed and nothing has happened. Although they knew the sect master would not lie about such a thing, some people could not prevent their minds from wandering. Luckily, they finally saw the fruits of their desire today. Now they no longer have to listen to the Wang clan bragging and looming their new strength over them. Wang Wei watched all of this while shaking his head. He proceeded to place the same seal in these people's bloodline, forcing them to walk the same path as the Wang clan. As for establishing their awakening ceremony, they have to wait for Li Jun and Yan Liling to prove the Tao. Wang Wei went to bed as planned, completely relaxing for a long time. He woke up the next morning all refreshed and had dinner with his mother. "Back to work," uttered Wang Wei as he took the last bite of his meal. He wiped his mouth out of habit, said goodbye to his mother, and disappeared from the sect. Wang Wei appeared above the sky in the central continent. He immediately noticed countless eyes paying attention to him, making him secretly shake his head. His every word and actions will fundamentally affect the entire world, so people pay attention to his every deed. As such, as soon as he showed up, as long as he did not purposely hide things, these lineages would know and pay attention. Wang Wei ignored these people and began his work. He activated his Space Grand Tao Source to create 5 small pocket dimensions, each with an anchor on the 5 continents. These pocket dimensions are closely connected to the Myriad Emperor world, and Wang Wei ensured they were protected. He made it impossible for other people to enter while also reinforcing the space to the best of his ability, meaning even if countless eternal emperors attacked these spaces, they would fail miserably. The next step was to activate his Spirit Flower ability. Under his control, 5 lotus flowers the size of a planet appeared in each of these dimensions. The flowers proceeded to release a unique light, and the world trembled slightly. Immediately afterward, a great deal of spiritual qi appeared in these dimensions. Few top powerhouses in this world realized these flowers directly connected to source qi space, drawing spiritual qi for the world. Such an act seemed simple, but only these powerhouses knew how difficult it was to access energy from the source qi space without causing trouble. Tao ancestor insurgents can access the source qi space, let alone great emperors. However, it is dangerous to open space tear that leads to the source qi space because it will create what cultivators call qi catastrophe. However, he soon realized it made no sense for him to be jealous since he was truly immortal. So he focused on his work. The first ray of innate qi appeared in the world, and Wang Wei ensured it appeared in the Tao opening sect, giving such achievement to his sect and central continent. After the first ray, more and more innate qi appeared all over the world. Under Wang Wei's control, 50% of the world was full of innate qi before slowing down. Now, is it only a water grinding process? The world will eventually be filled with innate qi, but it cannot be done overnight. The fact it reached 50% so quickly was due to his active effort. Let's finish the last step, thought Wang Wei. He pointed his finger in the sky, and an array that resembled a magic circle covered the entire world. Wang Wei flicked his finger as he fused countless resources into the array, most of which were emperor grade. Once he finished, the world trembled slightly for a second time, and more spiritual qi entered, which then prompted the 5 flowers to work even harder to make innate qi. Wang Wei's plan to change the environment started when he was a mortal after visiting the Heavenly Tree Village after the Spirit Road trial. Back then he did not have his Spirit Flower ability or know he would get it. Therefore, his original plan to change the environment was to get outside energy and convert it into spiritual qi. So he asked his sect to create such a formation. As for the source of this outside energy, Wang Wei's choice was obvious: the void or chaotic space energy outside of the Myriad Emperor world in the endless void. Such energy is basically limitless in the endless void, and it's the reason why weak cultivators cannot travel outside their worlds or planes. Wang Wei felt it was wasteful not to use it, hence the plan. The formation had to function, convert void energy into spiritual qi and compress spiritual qi into innate qi. However, compared to the spirit flowers, the compressing was subpar. Regardless, under Wang Wei's control, the innate qi in the environment soon reached 80%. Furthermore, he knew after reaching 100%, the first innate demon gods would once again walk the earth. Wang Wei's job was finished. He dispersed the 5 pocket dimensions, making them invisible and inaccessible to everyone. As the foundation of the world, he did not want any enemies to attack them and weaken the Myriad Emperor world. He fused the Void Qi array into the world's core and granted Heavenly Tao control over it. Swish! The sky changed as countless visions enveloped the world. Purple merit manifested above heaven before splitting into different portions. 80% of it descended on Wang Wei's hand. Of the remaining 20%, 15% went to Miscellaneous One for creating the formation, and the remaining 5% went to the people who helped in the process. Wang Wei smiled in satisfaction. He knew this was not the end of the merit. 953 Comparing the two systems. After instructing the sex people to deal with the current situation, Wang Wei returned home as he had a few things to do. Firstly, he finally took the time to check the formula the Sword Empress gave him. As expected, it was extremely complicated, and the materials were things he had never heard of. Wang Wei waved his hand. He used his power of fate to divine these materials to learn about their uses, growing environment, and even some of their history. In a few minutes, he knew these materials better than an alchemist who spent countless yuan epochs studying them. This went better than I expected, muttered Wang Wei. The next step was to stimulate refining this pill in his mind. However, he soon discovered with his current alchemy Grand Tao source, he could not refine such a high-level Emperor-tier pill. Well, it doesn't matter. As long as I successfully stimulate the refining process, my plan will work. He placed on the agenda to raise his minor Grand Tao source like alchemy and weapon refining. After that, Wang Wei took out a bunch of cultivation techniques, all from the ancient era. With the new environment, it's about time for him to update the origin system. However, he decided to wait a while and observe the world's reaction. He first wanted to see if the ancient clan would be stupid enough to secretly spread the primordial god system, trying to encroach on the Tao opening sects, Tao Father Luck. Although they appeared to have changed, he was still skeptical. Secondly, he wanted to see how the current origin system would fare in the current environment before his intervention. The changes in the environment are a perfect time for geniuses born at the wrong time to innovate their technique, thus entering the Dui realm. So, he wanted to see what they would come up with and see if some would inspire him for the upcoming upgrade. Although Wang Wei had an outline, he was not satisfied with the final result, so he wanted some inspiration from the ancient system. The first stage of the ancient system, also called the primordial god system, was the blood chi realm. This realm was the same as the current era body refining realm, cultivating the Bodhis blood chi. The blood chi cultivated by the ancient system should be purer than the origin system as they used innate chi and acquired chi to cultivate, analyzed Wang Wei. He waved his hand to condense a mortal clone of himself. Then, the clone began to cultivate the first stage of the origin system but using innate chi. The blood chi is indeed purer and more potent based on the environment, commented Wang Wei before creating a second mortal clone. But this one used the ancient system to cultivate his blood chi. The purity and potency are the same no matter the cultivation system. The origin system finally showed an advantage because of the versatility of origin source, which allows them to use different spells. Meanwhile, the ancient clone can only use a few divine abilities based on their bloodline. However, based on how powerful the bloodline is, it's possible to overwhelm the supernatural cultivator. However, the origin clone can also use unique innate talents, and in a worst-case scenario, they can destroy their potential by using their good fortune flame. The fifth stage is the bloodline awakening realm. In this realm, the ancient cultivators have achieved a second awakening of their bloodline, thus tempering their bodies to a higher level and awakening more potent divine abilities. The battle simulated by Wang Wei between the two clones was barely a tie. The divine body realm clone suffered from a weaker body despite tempering it again in the human stage. The origin clone had a slight advantage after opening his orifice, sublimating his spirit and soul in the earth stage. As for the heaven stage, where he controlled the power of heaven and earth, the ancient clone did the same thing with their bloodline. The sixth stage was the true spirit realm, where the ancient cultivators fused their souls or spirits into their bodies, achieving a true spirit. In this realm they gained incredible regeneration. As long as a part of their flesh exists, they can regenerate and revive themselves because of their soul. The battle result in this stage was relatively equal. The ancient clone was difficult to kill, while the origin clone could save his life by abandoning his body and running away with his primordial spirit. The seventh tier is the law awakening realm, where the ancient cultivators awaken the law in their bloodline. It's in this stage where they can awaken their innate law. In this stage, the origin systems won as void-shattering cultivators already comprehended the law while the ancient systems were still in the process of awakening. The eighth tier is the law comprehension realm. The name revealed its purpose. The battle between these two systems became somewhat unique. The origin system's saint will dominate the ancient system with their domain, rendering it useless. However, that's only applicable to people who have not awakened innate laws. By then, the domain's power becomes useless, and the final winner will depend on the individual's comprehension. Logically speaking, saints should have a deeper understanding than law comprehension realm, but that was not completely true. The time the ancient cultivators spent awakening their law was not in vain, as it allowed them to become extremely in tune with the law, granting them higher control over it than the origin system. The ninth stage is the law body realm. The ancient cultivators would use their laws to modify their physical bodies to resemble innate demons or primordial gods. The system's version of the quasi-emperor realm was once the law body reached a certain size and its power reached beyond the normal law body or supreme realm. The clones' confrontation in these two realms was also relatively equal. Wang Wei preferred the ancient system at the supreme realm as the body of a supreme is too weak and fragile before they fuse with their dharma body. However, the strength of each system was relatively the same. Each has their own advantage, commented Wang Wei. In the early stages, the ancient system had a clear advantage. In the middle stages, the origin system only shines because of the innate talent and suicide method of the good fortune flame. However, I'm not a big fan of the ancient system because of their over-reliance on bloodline. The origin system's law path is better, in my opinion, than the ancient system. However, it's worth learning how the ancient system became extremely in tune with the law at Tier 7. In the law path, the ancient system relies more on better control supplemented by a powerful body. Meanwhile, the origin system focuses more on a deeper understanding of the law and sublimating it. I have many ideas on how to improve the origin system, but let's wait. Maybe I can find more inspirations from the genesis of this era and from other cultivation systems. (954) The Sovereign of Dream. The simulations took Wang Wei a few days, and such a time was enough to see how the world was dealing with the recent changes. He scanned the entire world with his divine sense and nodded in satisfaction. These factions knew this was an opportunity to acquire merit points, so they went all out to protect their domains and areas. In the past few days, a few new immortal lineages appeared in the world as these supreme lands used their merit point to exchange for an immortal mansion. Although they exchanged all their savings in the past few hundred years, it was worth it. I don't know whether this exchange is good or not, thought Wang Wei. After the mortal civilizations reach their peak, it won't be so easy to acquire merit points. Moreover, Wang Wei could foresee Heavenly Dao increasing the price of immortal mansions and Grand Dao Source Seed in the future. Well, it doesn't matter to me, thought Wang Wei as he focused on something else. He waved his hand and sent something to the Eternal Dream sect. Afterward, he disappeared from the world, reaching another world community. This community was ruled by the Heavenwell world called Desolate Point World. Wang Wei looked at this Heavenwell world, thinking of the information he knew. Before the Heavenwell battle, this world suffered a terrible catastrophe in the form of an eternal Emperor Tier Void Beast, almost destroying their cultivation civilization. Wang Wei looked at it before heading somewhere else. This was not his destination. He appeared in a world on top of a mountain. The first thing he noticed was how vast this world was. According to his scan, this world was 30% the size of the Myriad Emperor world. Such a size was shocking. Most Great Thousand Worlds were the size between 5 to 10% of their world community's Heavenwell world. The second thing Wang Wei noticed was the majestic Chi Luck dragon of this world, traveling around the entire world. Without anyone seeing it, the dragon seems to be checking up on its territory, ensuring the people are satisfied and there are no people causing problems. This Chi Luck dragon is so spiritual, it's almost like a living creature, thought Wang Wei before sighing. Every time I think this place originated from the small Great Xia dynasty, I can't help but think of the vicissitudes of life. Wang Wei teleported to a beautiful white and black palace at the center of this world. He did not barge in with his cultivation power, but he also no longer hid his aura, waiting for the owner to invite him in. As expected, a few minutes later, a eunuch came out of the palace looking at him. "Is your excellency Wang?" The eunuch did not dare finish his words as he suddenly felt it was a great offense to utter this being's name. His intuition told him he would suffer great karmic calamity if he uttered the latter's name. "I'm sorry for the offense," said the eunuch swiftly in his shrill voice. "It's fine," replied Wang Wei. "Your Majesty is waiting for you." He did not even dare to look this person in the eyes. "Lead the way." Wang Wei calmly followed him while observing the surroundings. Meanwhile, the eunuch was trembling in the front. He suddenly felt it was a great offense to walk before the being before him. Unfortunately, this was his job. Wang Wei noticed the eunuch's behavior, but there was nothing he could do about it. His life form was entirely on a different dimension than this person. So, even if he did not release any aura or was malicious, that's how most people would behave before him. However, the main reason for the eunuch's situation is psychological problems or state of mind. If his willpower were firm enough, the situation would not have developed to such a state. You can leave, I will go the rest of the way alone. The eunuch felt relieved before becoming entangled. Don't worry, she won't blame you. He sighed in relief, bowed 90 degrees to Wang Wei before basically running away as fast as possible. Wang Wei did not mind and continued to his destination, the palace garden. He smiled after arriving at his destination, thinking how he would bring people to the court's garden when he wanted a more peaceful and relaxed atmosphere. It seems all great rulers think the same. He made a small joke before reaching his destination. In a small pavilion next to a flower garden was a beautiful woman dressed in a white monarch robe with 9 golden dragons and 9 red phoenixes embroidered in. She had a strange aura that seemed to mix many things together, some of which should not be fused but were perfectly done so. She was beautiful, noble, proud, and domineering, like a supreme ruler who decided the lives of trillions of lives. She also was ethereal, like a sweet dream that no one could ever forget. Underneath that etherealness was an eerie darkness akin to endless nightmares. Ms. Dong, long time no see, said Wang Wei as he approached the pavilion. He sat down on the cushion opposite her. Yes, it's been a long time, nodded Dong Lifan as she poured tea. Her facial expression was calm, but her pale face indicated her injury had not completely healed. After serving the tea to both of them, she started the conversation. As expected, you were the final winner. She had secretly watched the Desolate Point's emperor proving the Tao. The latter was only peak first-class emperor, slightly short of becoming a pseudo-eternal. However, the aura he released was nothing compared to the person before him. Indeed, nodded Wang Wei before sighing. If you were not stubborn, you could have proven the Tao in this generation as well. Stubborn? So, one day while Dong Lifan was planning the next territory to take over, a giant palm descended from the heavens. Luckily for her, she borrowed the luck of the dynasty to boost her strength to a higher level. Furthermore, the opponent did not seem to want to kill her. Therefore, Dong Lifan ran away with severe injuries after losing all her troops and foundation in that world. Of course, such a defeat was not enough to stop the Sovereign of Dream. After recuperating both from her injuries and previous loss, she targeted another great thousand world. She only needed to be cautious. The end result was a success. So, Dong Lifan's ambitions grew, targeting a heavenward world. However, she learned from her mistake, so she chose to conquer countless great thousand worlds and fuse them with the Warring Kingdom world, elevating them to a higher level. She also took into consideration Wang Wei and the Tao opening sect, so she moved the Warring Kingdom world to another world community. While conquering the Great Thousand World, Dong Lifan also began to temper herself by fighting with the Heaven Chosen of the Desolate Point world. Sadly, she found them mediocre and suppressed all of them before disappearing. Even the current Great Emperor was easily suppressed by her back then. After returning from the Desolate Point world, Dong Lifan had an interesting thought. Could Qi Luck be used as a medium to control the Grand Tao Source? Great emperors used their souls while Tao ancestors used their inner world, so why couldn't she use the Qi Luck of her dynasty? After years of research and cultivation, she successfully created the Fortune Dynasty Immortal Path. After that, her ambitions grew, and she wanted to know what would happen if she could swallow or conquer a Heavensward world. Luck was on her side as the Desolate Point had experienced a catastrophe, thus drastically weakening them. Unfortunately, Dong Lifan's strength was far from reaching the level of conquering a Heavenward world with insurgents. Luckily for her, Wang Wei guessed her intention and sent someone from the sect to protect her. Wang Wei looked at her and could tell her strength. Her physical body was already on par with 2 root Tao ancestors. After borrowing the power of the Grand Tao Source, her strength would reach the limit of 5 root with 999% Grand Tao Source control. If not for the limitations of true heavenly Tao, she might have achieved an alternate 10 supremacy foundation. He analyzed before sighing. If Dong Lifan had better luck and was born into a top emperor lineage, she could have achieved an alternative 10 supremacy foundation, just like she achieved an alternate 9 supremacy foundation. Her faction only needed to help her destroy a weak heaven will at all costs, allowing her to swallow it. Such a price was nothing to create a potent eternal supreme. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for saving my life, she said. No problem. Chapter 956 Heavenly King. So, what's next? Asked Dong Lifan. Do you want me to leave with you now? Depends. What's your plan for Great Xia? Dong Lifan pondered for a moment. According to my original idea, the next step was to fuse with the dynasty. According to the fortune dynasty path she created, once the ruler reached the minimum standard of borrowing the strength of the Grand Tao source with their Qi luck, the next step was to permanently fuse with the dynasty, becoming something akin to a Tao ancestor's inner world. You have reservations about this path? Asked Wang Wei. Yes. It's fine if others do it, but the dynasty will become a major weakness to me, explained Dong Lifer. Her path has its advantages compared to Tao ancestors. The main one is the base strength of people in her path will be stronger than Tao ancestors because of the blessing of Qi Luck Dragon. Additionally, with a vast enough dynasty and prosperous luck, it's easier for the people in her path to become insurgent. However, there is also a major downside: the dynasty. If a Tao ancestor's inner world is destroyed, their strength will be decreased drastically, but they can also rebuild it. However, it's different for a dynasty. After losing so many civilians, the dynasty's Qi luck will be extinguished, and it's virtually impossible to return to the peak. In other words, the people who walked her path would be severely restricted by their dynasty. If they lose it, they will also lose their strength and maybe immortality. Wang Wei understood her hesitation. Losing the dynasty would indeed be a major blow. Although the people in your path won't lose their immortality, they probably won't be able to regain their strength after a very long time. Their only choice might be to change to the Tao ancestor path. That's what I'm worried about, nodded Dong Lifan. If she loses access to Great Xia, she is still powerful because of her fleshy body and because she has been exposed to the Grand Tao source. However, the people who followed her path won't be so lucky unless they follow her example and temper their bodies to a high enough level. However, there is a reason why few people can accomplish great things in the body refining path. Additionally, she has special authority as the founder of this path. True heavenly Tao won't have a problem if she changes to the Emperor path. However, it's not the same for others. Just like immortal venerables and Tao ancestors cannot participate in the heaven will and become a great emperor. My suggestion for you is to fuse the dynasty with your soul, said Wang Wei. Oh, why? The process can turn all citizens into spiritual life forms bonded to your soul. After you prove the Tao and become eternal, your soul will also become eternal. Dong Lifan's eyes lit up as she understood the benefit of such a method. No, I just thought all these paths with different but similar names were too confusing. Wang Wei just thought how a normal mortal would try to keep all these names and paths in their minds. There are Heavenly Primarchs, which is Tier 12, now there is the Heavenly King, the Tier 10 of another system. Not to mention Immortal Kings, the Tier 12 of another system. If you add the soul path he is going to create, there are too many names with synonyms of the words, King, Ruler, or Emperor. Dong Lifan glanced at him but did not say anything, so Wang Wei changed the subject. How much time do you need to finish everything here? Dong Lifan took a moment. I will announce the fusion and give people the choice to fuse or leave. I will leave a few void boats for the ordinary people who do not want to refuse, taking them to another world. The entire process should take a month. That's not long, nodded Wang Wei. He could wait for such a short period. I remember you once mentioned a destined woman for you, Dong Lifan suddenly said. Did you find her? I did, said Wang Wei with the most brilliant smile ever. She must be a wonderful woman. That she is. Well, I can't wait to meet her. In that case you will be disappointed, said Wang Wei with a smile. After seeing her confused look, he explained, things are complicated, so she's not here now. I see, she nodded, dedicated not to pry further. What about you? Anyone special? Yes, my husband, replied Dong Lifan with a gentle smile. Oh. Wang Wei was slightly surprised as he only asked randomly. He did not sense anyone in the palace who had dragon destiny, so she thought she did not have a king. Who is the lucky man? A scholar with the purest heart I've ever met, replied Dong Lifan, a brilliant smile hanging on the side of her mouth. He reminded me of the young me before you arrived. She remembered when they met. One day she went on one of her strolls to tour the dynasty and check the people's lives. Then she met a young scholar who was famous in the town and was serving as the town chief. The people loved him because of his benevolent rule, but the merchants and aristocrats around saw him as a stupid man and took advantage of his kind nature. Dong Lifan was intrigued and wanted to meet a scholar. She wondered how a civil servant of the dynasty could be so stupid. She checked on him and realized the latter was not stupid but too kind. He knew these people took advantage of him, but he did not care. Dong Lifan reprimanded him and told him to be tough when needed. She left after the tour, but a few months later she could not help but want to check on the scholar. She discovered he remained the same despite her warning. So she began to check on him regularly. Ultimately they got to know each other and fell in love. He sounds like a great guy. I would love to meet him. Dong Lifan's eyes dimmed a little. He's dead. Chapter 957 Preparations. Dong Lifan did not waste time. She sent the news about the fusion and allowed the citizens to choose their own path. As expected, more than 96% of people chose to follow her. These people knew their majesty was the source of their prosperity, so without her, their lives might return to the terrible state before the great Xia took over. As for the ones who chose another path, they had multiple reasons. Most of these people were not true supporters of Dong Lifan and only wanted to use the dynasty for their own ambitions. The others rejected the idea of relying on someone else for their life or immortality. Some simply wanted to live a normal or ordinary life. No matter what choice these people made, Dong Lifan did not stop them. She left a void boat to transport these individuals to another world. Afterward, she proceeded with the fusion. A terrifying swallowing power emanated from Dong Lifan's Niwen acupoint, and the entire world was rapidly shrinking as they entered her head. It was like there was an invisible black hole in the middle of her forehead that was swallowing everything in its path. A mighty aura spread out from Dong Lifan's aura. A river of chains manifested before her as she raised her to mobilize her grand Tao source. The power of dreams and nightmares condensed in her hand before disappearing. "How do you feel?" asked Wang Wei. "Complete and flawless," she replied. The dynasty was no longer her weakness. Even the Qi dragon in her sea of consciousness was now a fundamental part of her body. It was like she had awakened a unique physique related to dragons. With a thought, a purple gold dragon appeared around Dong Lifan. "Controlling the Qi looks so much easier now, it's like it was another part of my body," continued Dong Lifan. Before, she had to fuse with the dragon to bless her strength or defense. However, now she can materialize the dragon and use it as a defensive weapon. "It seems that the dynasty has mutated because of your dream soul," commented Wang Wei. "Yes. The citizens could be considered dream or nightmare life forms instead of pure spirit life forms," nodded Dong Lifan. Such a change was beneficial to her, so she did not mind. Wang Wei's eyes lit up after hearing this. "You should take some time to control your leaking soul power," he warned. After the fusion, her soul drastically increased. Therefore she could not properly control its power. "I will." Dong Lifan could tell her soul's transformation was unfinished and required some time. So she was not in a rush. "In that case, let's go," said Wang Wei. With a wave of his hand, they disappeared and returned to the sect. "I will take you to see the ancestors." He had already sent news, so many people were already waiting for them once they teleported to the secret realm. Chapter 958 Third Court Meeting, Unedited Chapter. The court members came extra early today. They wanted to use the merit they gathered in the past 1,000 years to exchange things. A few people had already exchanged things beforehand, but a few lineages predicted the list would update, so they saved their merit. As expected, when they checked the list today, a few new things were added, mainly 2 unique Grand Dao Source seeds. According to the description of the list, these seeds will allow the people to cultivate insurgents up to the 2nd class. Heavenly Tao blessed the seeds with its will using a system similar to Primarch's. As such, after creating an inner world with that unique seed, a Tao ancestor will receive a will blessing that makes them on par with 3rd and 2nd class great emperors. Sadly, this thing was extremely expensive and so far only the Tao opening sect can afford it. However, these top lineages who waited did not care. The mortal civilizations have only developed for 1,000 years and have plenty of time to continue to develop. Another unique thing on the list originated from the Heavenly Emperor. It's a cultivation-blessed land full of chaos chi. After paying a certain price, these lineages can borrow them to cultivate. Energy is also important to immortal cultivators. It's easier and faster for immortal venerables to convert chaos chi into immortal chi than using innate or spiritual chi. Tao ancestors and great emperors can absorb it to speed up their comprehension of the Grand Tao source. The higher the quality and intensity of the energy, the faster their cultivation is. It's one of the reasons many great emperors did not need to ascend as soon as possible during the beginning emperor era. The environment still provided them with opportunities to make progress, unlike modern times, where it is so slow that it makes people despair. After these people saw the thing on the list, they could not help but be speechless. They could detect many areas in the court full of chaos chi, yet the heavenly emperor asks them to pay for these blessed lands. His objective is obvious: he wants them to move the court. After so many years and seeing how the world changes every day, many people are not too averse to the idea of moving to the court. Although it would symbolize a more concentrated power of the court, which means less power for their faction, they could still accept such a change because they will benefit from this system once the current emperors leave and they put their people in the court. However, staying close to the heavenly emperor is like a mortal living in close proximity to a tiger. Even if you know the tiger is not targeting you, the mortal will still be afraid because this beast is powerful and can kill him anytime. Because of this mentality, most people resist the urge or desire to stay in the court. Our next court affairs is the establishment of ruling departments, continued Wang Wei. There will be the Department of General Affairs, in charge of creating rules and regulations for the world, mostly to protect the mortal civilizations. We need a Department of Law Enforcement to reinforce the rules. Heavenly Tao will supervise this department to prevent abuse of power. Lastly, we need a Department of Foreign Affairs responsible for dealing with the myriad emperor world's interaction with the lower realm and world communities. Wang Wei paused to give these people time to process this information and analyze things. A few seconds later, he continued, "We need to develop the divine legions. I can tell all of you our next meeting will be about foreign expansion. Now, our main objective won't be about conquest, but we also must be prepared for war at any time. Many people will not accept the spread of new ideas, so force must be used." The representatives looked serious after hearing this. This sentence contains much information, but it can be summarized into one sentence: prepare for eventual war. Wang Wei looked at these people's reactions. He knew none of them would truly help establish the Divine Legion. However, his main objective was to tell them to prepare to fight for their interest. That's it for now, but there should be more departments as we develop. Each department will have a department head and deputy, along with other lower positions. I will use a unique test to choose these positions. Interested personnel can participate. The representatives became excited after hearing this. These positions are very valuable, not only because of the cultivation blessing and merit for serving the court but also because of the political power that comes with them. Wang Wei ignored these people and focused on Aoshin. "I once said I owe your demon race for going back on my word and taking the racial luck condensing artifact. As repayment, I give you two choices: guarantee positions in these departments or merit points." Aoshin swiftly analyzed the pros and cons. Although the position would increase the demon's political power and influence on the world, he could foresee many people using the fact they bypassed the test to get their positions to make trouble for them. So, it would be best to acquire them using the official method. "I choose merit points." Wang Wei nodded and transferred 3.5 million merit points to the demon race. This amount was more than enough for breaking a promise. "Oh, before I forget, don't kill Xiao Songxi," added Wang Wei. He still had his great trafficking plan. Although Xiao Songxi was not a top heaven chosen in this generation, he was still a great talent. Now that he was in such terrible shape with his bloodline destroyed, the Sea race might make the stupid decision to kill him, and Aoshin won't have any issue once he finishes his dealing with the Baishi clan. Aoshin nodded calmly. He never expected to hide his actions and whereabouts from the Heavenly Emperor. Since the latter never stopped him, he knew he would encounter no problem with his plan, at least not from Wang Wei. "Now, let's discuss the main subject of this meeting," declared Wang Wei. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 959 Dream World I. "For my demonstration you only need to concentrate and use the words, 'Dream Incarnate,'" said Wang Wei. Many people were confused, but they knew this was not the time to ask questions, so they followed orders. The world changed and the representatives found themselves in a strange world. Everything was bright, ethereal, and illusory. Additionally, the ground on their feet seemed to be clouds. "Welcome to the dream world," said Wang Wei, who stood before them. I know you have questions. Wait a while before I explain. Everybody nodded and waited. Some people felt something momentous was about to happen. As I said, this is a world made of dreams. So what is its purpose? Many things. This is a world of communication and unique experience, explained Wang Wei. This dream world will be accessible to everyone in the Myriad Emperor world using the password I told you before. In other words, from now on, this place can be used to communicate with anyone worldwide, including mortals. Wang Wei looked at some of these people's reactions and secretly shook his head. I know most of you don't care about such a thing. However, have you thought about communicating with other world communities? Your Majesty, you mean? Yes, once we spread our wings to the lower dimension, the dream world will be accessible to other world communities. By then, a mortal in the farthest corner of our world can easily communicate with someone from the farthest world community from us. The representatives finally showed excitement as they understood the implications behind these words. Communication is key for everyone. Learning from other people's Tao and experience is a fast way to improve. Additionally, the Heavenly Emperor showed them the advantage of learning other cultivation systems as he used another Heaven Will system to prove the Tao on his own and achieve the status of immeasurably Emperor. The Myriad Emperor world has been cut off from the endless void for too long, so even the top Emperor lineages were careful in re-establishing communication. But now, with the Dream World, most of their restraint and danger have been eliminated. Your Majesty, I have a question, said Su Shi. Are you going to ask if we can use the Dream World as a platform to exchange resources with other world communities? Yes. With the revival of the environment, the Myriad Emperor world will enter a prosperous age where cultivation resources are everywhere. However, it did not mean exchanging with other worlds was useless. On the contrary, they had more rare things to exchange with others, thus increasing the resources in their world. No one would think they have too many resources. Yes, it will be possible, said Wang Wei. However, this ability is temporarily not activated. You have to wait a while. He waved his hand and the place changed. Wang Wei sat on a throne looking at all sentient beings. If you want to be a mighty general that slaughters all its enemies, you can be. The setting changed and he was on a battlefield commanding a mighty legion. If you want to be lost in carnal desires, you can. As he said these words, one of the representatives was surrounded by hundreds of beautiful women with different temperaments. Some were cold and indifferent, some were doting and loving, some were domineering, some were shy, and some were extremely open and proactive. The representative almost broke his Tao heart after seeing these beautiful women, some of whom were on par with the Time Void Empress. Luckily, he was also an immortal and had lived for some time, so his mind was not easily shaken. If you have someone in your mind you have lost, and time has diluted their presence and memory in your mind, this setting is perfect for you, continued Wang Wei. A beautiful woman appeared before him, wearing her iconic long cheongsam and showing her long legs. As soon as she appeared, she immediately stole the limelight from beauties like Su Shi and Hua Fenghuang simply by her aura and temperament. Wang Wei raised his hand to caress her face, looking at her with tender eyes. She smiled at him in response. A few seconds later, she vanished in a puff of smoke. Now, you should understand the use of this setting, continued Wang Wei, ignoring the strange eyes some people were giving him. He knew with his status and strength, everything he did was major news to be discussed or gossiped. This is why there are still rumors he had a hidden relationship with Su Shi. However, he did not care. I have a question. No, it should be a concern, said Hua Fenghuang. Please. Could a cultivator use their home to recreate someone they have affection for but could not get in real life, then do something disgusting to them? As soon as she said that, many of the women in the room realized the possibility of this happening and began to discuss it. Why are you guys acting like it's something only man would do? Said one of the representatives. Some female cultivators would do the same thing. That's true. No, we want bullshit. Look at our handsome and suave Your Majesty is. I'm sure many of you would secretly recreate him and fulfill all your fantasies. Wang Wei secretly gave that guy a thumbs up, especially after seeing a few female representatives blush. In the end, when he saw an argument was about to happen, he coughed lightly, stopping everybody. This is indeed an issue, but the home setting is the private property of anyone who buys it. So I will not interfere. After all, whatever they do in their homes will not affect the real person. However, there will be rules and regulations for people who cannot distinguish between reality and dream. So, if someone begins to harass the real individual, they will be warned and punished. Feng Huang nodded and frowned. This was the best in the current situation. Anyway, she did not have to worry about such a thing. Tier 10 cultivators are higher dimensional life forms, so if someone tried to recreate them and defile their image, they would immediately know. The situation is even more favorable for eternal emperors who have comprehended their existence. If someone recreated them in this dream world, they could take control of this dream avatar with a single thought. Your Majesty, this poor monk notices you use the word purchase, chimed in Feng Heng. Yes, the dream world will use a currency called dream coins, said Wang Wei. Dream coins can be condensed by using a small portion of your spiritual power, said Wang Wei as he showed them. The representatives followed his example and condensed dream coins. Many people frowned as this system indicated that they could have endless wealth and resources to use in this dream world. However, would things be so simple? Of course not, thought Wang Wei. He calculated how many dream coins every tier and class of cultivators can condense in a day. The data was based on the weakest of a tier to the most talented individuals, including the Great Emperor world. Afterward, he priced the things in the dream world based on that data. So, even eternal emperors like Su Shi and Feng Heng could be said to be somewhat wealthy and do not have infinite wealth. He made dream coins so easy to condense because of mortals and because he only wanted one thing from them: circulation. This thing is the biggest fraud of the dream world and hides many secrets. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 960 Dream World 2. Wang Wei did not explain the secrets of dream coins to them. Instead, he introduced the next setting of the dream world. A beautiful, small creature with wings appeared before him, landing on his palm. "XN, say hi to everybody," said Wang Wei, and the little elf bowed to the representatives. "It's a pleasure for XN to make all your acquaintances." "She's so cute," muttered someone. "Isn't she?" nodded Wang Wei. XIN is the dream world's Tao heart spirit. If you have any problem with your Tao heart, any trouble that is affecting your state of mind or any heart demon, you contact her and she will help you through it. Of course, it's not free. "Your Majesty, are you serious?" asked Su Shi. There were no pills or herbs in this world that could help someone with the issue of their Tao heart. Therefore, the only way to deal with the situation is to become enlightened and deal with the issue individually. Sometimes the advice of an elder, family, or close friend might help, but in the end, every cultivator with a problem with Tao heart has to rely on their own. But if Zin's abilities are real, the situation might change. "I would not joke about something like that," explained Wang Wei. XIN, or the Tao heart spirit, is the culmination of two different civilizations. He went to his science and technology world to learn about psychology or the human mind or psyche. He visited human civilizations that are based on futuristic versions of Earth, along with civilizations that focus deeply on mental health. After acquiring their knowledge, he combined it with his understanding of the Tao heart and the state of the cultivation world to create this world's version of a therapist. From now on, when cultivators have problems with their minds, they can talk to XIN, and she will help them with their problems. Wang Wei looked at the little elf in his palm. Now, she only lacks experience dealing with cultivators. After gathering data for a few thousand years, she will be perfect. Does anyone want to give her a try? People hesitated for a moment before a few volunteered. "Look at your dream imprint," continued Wang Wei, and all the representatives looked at the screen before them. The rune was still at the top, but in the middle of the screen were two smaller squares with small characters written at their bottom: frowny face communication, home, Tao heart spirit. The volunteers knew what to do, so they used their minds to access the Tao heart spirit. Immediately afterward, they disappeared from everybody's sight. However, in less than 5 minutes they reappeared. "You," said Wang Wei, pointing at a middle-aged man who was a representative of the Worshipping Tao Academy. "Tell us your experience." The second part of the test was different. The General Affairs Department had become court members in the scenario, and their task was to create rules and deal with conflicts. They will be rated based on how efficiently they deal with internal conflicts between factions. Meanwhile, the Foreign Department had a similar test, but their simulation dealt with foreign heavenworld worlds and their communities. This test was more difficult because these worlds had different cultures, histories, and beliefs, so it took great ability and finesse to deal with conflicts between them. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 962. The departments. While the tests were underway, the other representatives began to condense dream coins. They did not want to waste time and test some of the dream world's functions. Most people used the home function, living their wildest dreams. The second largest group tried the battle tower. Wang Wei secretly smiled as he watched this, but his eyes soon twitched. He immediately noticed a female representative trying to condense his face and body in their home. "I'm right there. Couldn't you wait?" He did not know how to evaluate this person's behavior. Sadly, the other person's smile soon turned into a frown as she realized she could not condense her image. "Hey, if I weren't married, I would have no problem allowing people to use my face and image for their wildest dreams. It would be an excellent way to gather more dream coins. Alas, I cannot risk my old lady becoming jealous or using this information against me in the future," thought Wang Wei with a deep inner sigh. He only felt it was too bad to waste such an opportunity. The woman soon turned red in embarrassment. She looked around to see if anyone was around. After realizing her home was utterly private, she sighed in relief. She tried a few times without success before condensing someone else. Li Jun. Wang Wei immediately felt things got out of control too fast. This woman was an immortal venerable. She should have more shame than this. Ultimately, he could only remain speechless, but not for long. Not even a few minutes after this woman, he had another reason for his eye to twitch. Another representative chose his imprint to fight him in the tower. The representative first chose the versions at the Supreme Realm, but he was slaughtered by one attack, so he chose the Void-Shattering Realm. However, according to the setting of the imprint, at this stage Wang Wei had already started his 9-extremity foundation and could borrow the power of his incarnation for a short duration. As such, his challenger, who was an immortal venerable, did not survive long in this battle. Angered, the representative chose the supernatural realm version of Wang Wei and started to kill him repeatedly. The representative was having fun for a while. Then Wang Wei's imprint was suddenly angered and used a desperate move. He mobilized all the power of his soul, removing the shackles in the process. Then, an unparalleled soul power crushed the representative at the cost of the imprint's life. After recondensing his dream body, the representative was scared and stopped this futile and juvenile tactic. Wang Wei secretly shook his head. Luckily, I'm not the only one suffering. He could tell many people secretly challenged the Eternals of this generation. Some wanted to know how powerful these emperors were when they were young, while others only wanted to abuse the young emperors for their sick and twisted pleasure. She was suspicious of Ao Shin's movements but could not gather any concrete evidence or proof despite her deduction. This world is about to experience a truly prosperous era, she thought, feeling a sense of pressure. I can't no longer have any hesitation. Su Shi decided to rush home to meet with the Academy's members. Then she will enter the dream world to have a chat with Xian regarding her husband, Lin Fan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.